man now. Oh man, what a show. It's Man's Radio. It's crazy show is on 3 times a week. Now Russ and Phil are there to help with all your cares. We laugh, we cry, we talk like grown-ups do. But if you're sad and low, it won't cost you no dough. Man's Radio, that's the place for you. Russ Kane, Phil Dave.
By
It's Friday.
Crickets. By Jiminy Crickets, Mrs. Men's radio station, www. God, it's such a bore to say that, isn't it?
Well,
Men's
don't say
radio
it then.
Well, I just say what?
People know it's
What's-
www.
How do they know? How do they know? How?
Trust me, they know. They know there's www.
They know nothing.
No.
Square root of sod all. That's what everybody
You
knows.
don't give them enough credit. They know there's www.
I'm not giving them. I'm so broke. I'm not giving anybody any credit. That's what
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Veronica
Hello,
Curran says, "Hello, Friday family."
Hello, Friday family. She's getting a bit busy. She'll
You
want
see,
money
it's
now.
not just. Excuse me, it's not just me. Look,
You don't need the W, says Paul Andrews.
you see,
Well, how are you going to say the word window? How are you going to
Windows.
say the word wonderful? How are you going to say the word wag?
Anchor. Oh, I see. Actually, no, that's with an A. Anyway, Paul Andrews says, "Happy Friday, guys." Oh, look, you got the Schnauzer T-shirt
I
on
got
today.
one of my many Schnauzer T-shirts. Yes, I'm slightly obsessed. Yeah, and you can listen to us, of course,
Oh,
on.
whoa! Just a cotton picking segment.
Well, she won the lottery. What's going on here? What's going on?
Morning from Champneys Tring. Andy Lucas, what have you been up to? Excuse me.
Well,
She
do you
went
think she's
lottery,
wandering
didn't
around in
tell
one of
me.
those? She's wandering around in one of those white dressing robes, going, "Hello, I'm Andrea Lucas."
No,
And
what's
who
more
are
scary
you,
than
you
that?
handsome
Second.
young man?
No, you know what's more terrifying than that prospect?
What?
We are being heard in Champneys at the moment. We, the fine examples
Do you think
of creatures that we
sound
are.
slim? Do you think we sound slim?
I don't know. But all I do know is that the weather from the last few days has made me shed a few pounds inadvertently. Because it's like being in a sauna. It's fantastic. I
Is
love it.
it?
But can
Where
you
are
see I'm in waistcoat
Where are
mode?
you? Where are you? Hey, this is why I'm shedding weight. This is what I'm having.
Because you've got nothing left. Oh, I see. You mean you've just drunk a shake? Oh, right. I thought you meant you had no food in the house.
I don't have food in the house apart from little bits of fish. Well, I
How
have to say,
extraordinary.
it's worked. It's worked. I have to be very, very disciplined about it. And I'm going
Right.
to keep going. This is only week 2 because I just wasn't happy. And am I ever? And yeah, I'll talk to you about it when I'm a bit further down. Has Ebony cooled off a bit, says Paul Andrews. No, I have fans on in all the rooms and because she just wanders round willy-nilly. And,
Cooled off. I thought you meant she was in a grump. Sorry.
No. Kimmy Lashma. I'm at Mum's. I'm cross again. I called at 8 a.m. for an appointment, as requested, and still waiting for triage to call me back. When it's your elderly parents. Yeah, it's a hell of a worry. It's a hell of a worry. Kimmy, keep us posted there. So you were told, let me just see if we've got this right, me and Phil. Between us, we have an IQ of almost double figures, but not quite. You called at 8 a.m. for a triage, and they haven't phoned you back. Well, that sucks.
Now, Paul Andrews says, I do miss the Friday cookery show, Challah with Dave. Now, I do understand your pining for challah, Paul. Believe me, when I have
Why? Why?
the bought stuff. No, when I have the bought stuff, it's
No,
nowhere
I
near
can't
as
eat
nice.
bread, you see. No bread.
Can you not?
No bread.
Dear, that's a bit rough. But anyway, the problem...
I haven't done a bread.
Really?
Stopped drinking.
At all?
No, I've stopped drinking.
Why do you even want to carry on? No
I don't.
bread, no
As a
drinking,
matter of
it's
fact, I woke
ridiculous.
up in the most terrible state this morning. It's funny you should say that. It's odd. I'm trying to balance it up because I just thought, no, I'm going to shift it. There was nothing dramatic, And I thought, no, especially because with my rubbish back and all the rest of it, the lighter I am, the easier it is on my back. And it's been a good 2 weeks, to see results is encouraging. So that's great. But then you get into the habit, and these shakes, they kind of really fill you up. And so I'm having 2 of those a day and 1 very small meal. That's it. And apart from yesterday, I stopped drinking.
Veronica Curran asks a question that I'd like to know as well. She says, what are the shakes like? What do they taste like?
They're really good. They're really good.
But what are the flavours?
I'm not going to
No, but what are the flavours?
Chocolate, vanilla, hazelnut, cafe latte.
Oh.
Hang on a minute. And banana. I think that's it. That's kind of it. And you just put it in the shake thing with skim milk. I have lactose free because it's better for my stomach. And that's it. And boy, A, it saves you a fortune because I'm not having to shop. And B, it makes breakfast and everything so quick. Boom, it's gone.
Kimmy says, are you recording your tomorrow's programme, Phil? Tell me what's happening so I don't have to set the alarm in the morning. Well, Kimmy, by a curious coincidence, there's 2 things to answer that. Number one being is that you can get us... Number one, you'll get a sneaky peek if you go to my Twitter handle... at Mr. Phil Dave, shameless plug, and you will see there.
Are you plugging another bloody radio station when I'm moving heaven and earth and I'm a year behind with my book because I'm working on this?
I am not plugging another radio station.
Oh,
not
okay,
at
okay.
all.
Let's see how this goes. Let's see how this works out, shall we?
I'm
go
being
ahead, Philip.
very delicate when I say this. There's no way whatsoever that I would even dream of plugging my talk radio program. No, I'm talking about
absolute little swine.
What I'm doing is I'm saying if you go to Twitter, right, you'll see a little sneaky peek of me recording said program. And as far as she says she doesn't use Twitter, I can't help you there. But as far as what's on the show, well, you'll be pleased to hear you don't actually have to get up in the wee small hours because it's 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. on a Saturday, but it's 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on a Sunday.
I don't care when it is. Shut up.
Well, you should do.
Why? Why should I care?
Why listen to all of your other efforts?
What other efforts? I don't have any
Exactly.
other efforts. Precisely, so you can shut up. Barry J. Allen, we haven't got all the jingles and everything, so you have to...
I'm sorry.
Because Phil's incompetent. Because now he's a big shot. He doesn't care. Barry J. Allen, hello everybody there. Ramsey says, happy Huller-free Friday. By the way, the fantastic Ray Gelato entrance needs more bottom end.
Paul Claridge says, Russ Kane, I recall you plugged that other station last week.
It's only because Rupert Murdoch phoned me and said, Russ, look, there's 100,000 in it for you. Would you plug my little radio station? I said, Ru, least I could do,
Yeah.
And
then,
it's
not that you have ever plugged your book or anything like that. So,
that's entirely different. That's entirely different.
Of course it is. Because it's yours.
The other difference is it's my money and Penny and Howard's funding all of this.
And it's my time.
It is your time. Anyway, thanks a lot. It's been really great. Michael Verby, good afternoon. Michael, you've been out there for weeks and weeks and weeks. What on earth? Michael popped over from Leeds, right, to see his sister Stacey, who I have not seen since she was...
Excuse me, are you not even going to react to the fact that I've gone? You're not even upset?
Couldn't give a monkey's. Don't care. I'm like that. I'm like that. Once somebody's gone out of my life, they've gone out of my life. Boom. Move on.
I've already got out of the show. What do you mean out of your life? What's the matter with you? What, are you trying to get rid of me altogether now?
No, I'm just trying to make you uneasy. Anyhow, so Michael Verby popped... Just pay attention for a second. Michael Verby popped over to see his sister in Spain. He's been gone for weeks and weeks and weeks. The woman must be sick to death of you, for God's sake.
I know. Could you imagine having to tolerate someone for weeks and weeks on end? It must be terrible.
Yeah, I mean, imagine just, having someone who just keeps going on and on 3 times a week, pushing their own shows with their own agenda.
Oh, look, hang on. It's like E.T. Phone Home. Go on, do that again.
Phone Home.
Yeah.
I was never crazy about that. I never really adored that film.
I hated it.
It was all right.
I couldn't stand it.
I don't know why everyone raved about it.
I want to know what they did with that towel after they wrapped him in it. I hope they washed it before they used it.
Well, there's the thing. You could have been a guest there, washed your hands, dabbed your face if you were a bit warm, because I know how fastidious you are, and it's got alien DNA. That explains so much. Phil, that explains it. Kimmy Lashmar, it's Kimmy Lashmar right now. Why can't you just get an appointment with a doctor like the old days? Because they're screwing with us. That is why. This is a huge, huge issue that Kimmy has raised. So let's cut to the chase here. Didn't even know we were going to do this. Kimmy's with her mum, who I presume is a lady of certain years, and was told to phone at 8 o'clock for a triage appointment. We don't know what the problem is, but we wish her well. She phoned, and they haven't phoned back. So it's now 10 past 11, and she's climbing the walls, right? She's probably got other things to do, and her mum's not well. Our local GP surgery, significant other said, "Are you ever going to reopen like normal?" And they said, "No. No, not really." They want to get rid of us. So my view is that we were told, and Phil and I, oddly enough, both agree on this. Hey, you've got to save the NHS, save the NHS, save the NHS. All we heard, save the NHS. So like good little citizens, we did all our little bit, stood on our balconies and our street doors clapping, and it's all marvellous. But there comes a point, and I'm sorry to say this, where the NHS has to save us. And I know that's brutal and it's rather blunt, and people might get a bit upset, but it is true. They are there for us. We are not there for them.
No, it's not brutal. Actually, can I just point out,
it bluntly.
It's the same way that this week that the NHS staff, after they whinged about their 1% pay rise, got a 3% pay rise. And I'm sorry, but there is something rather unpalatable in an age where many people are losing their jobs, losing their livelihoods, and at best, if they have kept their jobs, they've taken a pay cut, to start complaining that the job you've got, which, let's be honest, is fairly secure. Very few people get sacked from the NHS unless they break conduct. But unless you're... but the fact that your job is relatively secure and you're getting a 3% pay rise from public money, and that's still not good enough either. I really think there's something very unsavoury about it. It's not nice at all.
I tell you what, I'm surprised Harold Shipman didn't go to an industrial tribunal. You can hear us on Deluxe Radio and also on Radio Waves. There's nothing to say. I was just being terrible. And it's a lovely thing. And thank you to Deluxe Radio and Radio Waves, because I'm besieged by lovely phone calls and emails. They want more shows from men's and women's radio. So thank you so much. It's very flattering and it's lovely.
Who left? Jokes.
No. It's not the BBC. It's not the BBC. They're actually nice people. So my view, Kimmy, is that why can't you get an appointment with a doctor like the old days? They've never wanted to see us. The truth of the matter is they've never wanted to see us. And I'm going to say something which I've said before, but it's very pertinent to this. And this isn't bashing the NHS. The NHS have been brilliant to me. I can only say they have been wonderful. Absolutely. When I've had major operations, they have been superb. I could not have wanted for more caring care and better attention. They were great. Okay, let's just put that to one side. 25, 30 years ago, as a corporate writer, I had to go around lots of NHS practices to do a training film. And I had to research this. Now I'm going back 25, 30 years. They couldn't cope then. And the basic model that they had, and I heard this from doctors all over the UK where I was travelling to interview them, was this. They want you in and out in 4 minutes. 4 minutes. And they work on the basis of this. Hello, Mr. Dave. Oh, I've got this, that and the other. Right. Tell you what, come back. If it hasn't cleared up, Mr. Dave, come back in a week. If Mr. Dave comes back in a week, they then sent them off to a specialist. Boom. They're out of there. They've gone, right? Most likely Mr. Dave won't come back in a week because whatever it is, these things usually clear up. And that's what they want. They want it on a revolving door. Boom, you're out the door. And that's it. When they set up the NHS, it's something to remember. And people always forget this. Under the Labour government, under Tony Blair, I was called in as a consultant to the Department of Health. Foolishly, they didn't ask me to sign the Official Secrets Act. It's a big mistake. Anywho, and I was doing lots of research and communications. I went in for a 3-week project and I stayed for 52 weeks because there was so much to be done in this particular department. And in my research, as you know, the NHS was founded in 1949 by Anira and Bevan, a wonderful, wonderful gesture to a generation who had lost so much and given so much in World War II. Wonderful thing to do. That was 1949. By 1951, they knew they couldn't afford it, but they were screwed because they'd committed to it. So in like 3 years, they knew it was completely unaffordable. But it was a wonderful thing to do, but it was enshrined in the British DNA, if you like, and that's why we have the most magnificent health service in the world. But they've never been able to afford it, not since day one. A wonderful idea, but the maths weren't seen through properly. And I'm sorry to be blunt about it, but that's the truth. And this is all the research that I found. It was there. It wasn't me making it up. There it was. From the time. So there you go. There you go. So I hope
it's rather extraordinary. You would like to think, though, that don't get me wrong, I realise that everyone has their flaws, and maths isn't necessarily my strongest point either.
Nor me.
But you would like to think that when coming up with that kind of idea and realising that it was hardly going to be done out of the goodness of people's hearts, that they would have done something in the way of sums, maybe on the back of a fag packet or something like that. I don't know, something. Just a smidgen, just to work this stuff out, no?
Well, you know, Phil, you say it lightly, but it's so true. It's so true. And people just go, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. How are you going to pay for it? Exactly. What is the big plan to pay for this? I don't get it. It's basic thinking. It's not revolutionary, is it? If you've got to be able to afford it. If you can't afford it, you can't blooming well do it. Paul Andrews, that sponsorship was short-lived. No. Oh, that's very sarcastic, Paul. You mean with Smart Investments? No. Smart Investments will be sponsoring us once every month to see how it goes. It's a bit bitchy, Paul, that sponsorship. It wasn't short-lived at all. They were absolutely delighted with the results. We're delighted to have them on board. And the agreement was that they were going to do it once a month. Not every week, once a month.
The agreement came from, by the way, because they realised that Russ and I weren't necessarily the finest examples of how to handle one's money. They also thought it was best to not make us sound completely stupid every single week, and that once a month would be more than sufficient. More
than sufficient, because they'd be sitting there, the two of them, and going, these two idiots, these are the two idiots talking about smart investments.
Paul Andrews has come back at you. He says, no, you misunderstood. It was about the
Harold Shipman.
You see? Oops.
Paul, well, I don't think we were ever sponsored by Harold.
No, he means that they'll break association with sponsorship based on that joke.
What, on the Harold Shipman joke? Sod it.
Wow.
How many people did he knock off? Jesus Christ, how many people?
Oh dear, Paul Andrews. Time lag
took the game out of context. Stop it! Very.
That was quite funny. Well done, Paul.
That Paul, you're on rocking form, boy. I tell you that, you're on absolute rocking form. Harold Shipman.
Oh, now he gets it.
No, I got it the first time. Dave Sleet, that psychological genius. Hello, Dave. The son of Sue Sleet via Bromley and Staples Corner up in Fife.
And the cousin of Looks Like. Thank you. Anyway. Whilst Russ recovers from really a crap joke.
That was very funny.
The base framework was always to be... I'm laughing at you laughing. It wasn't even that funny.
It's so funny.
The base
framework. It just caught me completely unawares. I was being really serious and polite to Dave Sleet, who's been so supportive. You come up with a really childish cracker joke, which just made me laugh. There we go.
The base framework was always to be a limited provision, not a catch-all.
What are we talking about? Are we talking about
no
the
idea.
NHS? Dave, can you elaborate a little bit, please?
Actually, no, you're probably, to be fair, it is the NHS, I'm sure.
Was to be a limited provision. Well, what does... you see, I don't know what that means.
See, the problem is something like that is that... But yeah, but the problem with something like that is, doesn't that mean that someone has to start playing God? and then decide who gets health
they
care
go,
and who
well,
doesn't.
you, Mr. Jones,
He confirms he's talking about the NHS.
You got a fractured arm. We can look after you. You, Mrs. Smith, you've got coronary problems. That's a bit expensive. It's not for us. I don't know how you can do that. As Phil says, somebody ends up playing God, and you don't want that. Difficult. Very, very difficult. But the genie is out, with so many things in life, it's like social media, the genie is out the bottle. You can't put that stopper back in. Way too late. Way too late. So the NHS is here. No one can get rid of that. And before anybody says anything about, it's always the Conservatives with the privatisation, I've got all tucked away, safely in a safe, all the privatisation plans that the Labour government had. They were jaw-dropping. I was looking at this and I'm going, you are kidding me. But it was true. I know, because I wrote some of it. Anyway, there we go. I couldn't believe it.
That's what you found jaw-dropping. It was your own work you found jaw-dropping.
No, I found the breadth, he's amused himself now, the breadth of what they were going to do, which I'm not going to reveal, was like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? Christ.
Andy Lucas, we're here to stay at the NHS, quite right.
But she's in a health farm. What does she care? Andy, did you have like half a grapefruit with a morella cherry on top for breakfast? And then sit in a sauna? Or, I don't know. Health farm's not for me.
Oh, do you know what, actually? I thought exactly the same, and then I actually went to one because someone dragged me along to it and said, no, seriously.
How do you mean dragged you along?
No, well, because they wanted to do it for their birthday or something like that, and I said, no, I'd really rather not.
Why would you want to celebrate in a bloody health farm? I'd rather celebrate
I don't know, because it wasn't my thing either. No, I agree, but it wasn't my thing anything. But I've got to tell you, what happened is they actually started pointing out all the different treatments that people don't necessarily know about. And I'm not talking about the face masks, I'm not talking about the other bits and pieces like that. The stuff that sort of stinks.
Did you have a took-us lift?
Cheek. No.
Okay.
What happened is
not
that
all that it's cracked up to be.
Well, quite. Anna was up at the crack of dawn. But anyway, the point is...
She's fed up with it.
She wasn't happy at all. But anyway... It was like looking up an old friend. Anyway, look, the point is that I was trying to suggest that...
I was pulled over by the police and they gave me a cavity search. I said, do it again, I want a second opinion. Moving on. Right, so you go to this health farm.
Anyway, so some of the things that I had done there, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of massages because I don't really like people touching me.
I hate them. No, I'm with you. Isn't this weird? We both have the same thing. And look at you with your Alvin Stardust gloves. I don't like massages at all. And I actually don't like being touched by strangers. Don't come up and start tapping my arm and hugging me. Don't.
No, I know, but I have to say it was the weirdest thing, though, because actually, in some weird way, in that kind of
environment... You dated her for 6 months.
No, in that kind of environment, it wasn't actually too bad. I agree. I'm not sort of that happy with it. But there was something about sort of you're in the zone. And I hate that expression, but you know what I mean. You're sort of like in the zone, and you kind of just go with it. But it wasn't too bad. But actually, I tell you what was the nicest bit about it, it's the food. I know this comes as a massive shock.
Is it nice
food? I know this comes as a massive shock. But honestly, the food was fantastic. Oh, look at this. Look, excuse me. Justin from Andy Lucas. It's
Justin
lovely,
from Andy Lucas there. That looks like a swing towards the Lucas party. If this is continued throughout the... Go on. Yeah.
Justin, she says... no, not Justin. Sorry, Andy says, it's lovely, very relaxing food, delicious, not like the olden days, not rabbit food. So there you go. Oh, no, Veronica Curran, that's the worst. Oh, she says head massage is divine. Oh, it's horrible. Ugh. No thanks.
It's very, very big. In Edinburgh, they get a fried Mars bar on either side of your head and they just massage it into your hair. And then they pour some iron brew all over you and then they massage that in. Then they get a square sausage and I can't tell you where they put it, but it's not comfortable.
It's terrible, though. The problem with the Mars bar massage...
Yeah, go on.
The problem with the Mars bar massage, the sugar goes to your head.
Yeah, you get a sugar rush. Not as much as a square sausage rush, which is deeply unpleasant. Now, Michael Verby, luxuriating somewhere in the Costa del Sol, I'm assuming...
So they don't do sausages by the string anymore.
Look, That is so rude, and I'm not going there. You can all make up your own gags. It's Michael says, by limited, it means not expecting cosmetic surgery and the like on the NHS. That is a bloody cheek. I don't mean Michael's comment. I think it's an absolute sodding cheek. There's certain things that make
but
me
it depends.
boil.
No, but it does
No,
depend.
if you've been caught in a fire, if you've had something, but if you're just a vain twat, you shouldn't be getting it on the NHS. It's nonsense.
No, but hang on, it's not as black and white as that. I would
Yes, it is.
in the past. No, it's not, because in the past
Yes,
I
it
would have
is.
agreed with you. But if that seriously damages the mental health of someone to think that they are that sort of insecure about their body, who is someone from the NHS to say, no, you can't have this cosmetic procedure because we think you're being vain, as opposed to every day they see themselves and are seriously affected by their body? That is a problem. It's a massive problem. And I agree completely. If it's for vanity, well, then to hell with you. But who are we to determine that?
Well, I think the point is, Phil, it's been taken advantage of by people who are just
that's for sure.
I want a nose job. I want this. It's making me depressed. Bullshit it is. Now, there are certain instances. No, there are certain instances, excuse me, without doubt. I get that. And it's important. But, please, how many people are taking advantage of that? How many people? And also the other thing which is graceful is NHS tourism. You know, people rock up, ooh, I don't feel well, I'm having a baby, I didn't know. Really? You didn't know? You're 9 months pregnant, you had no idea. What the hell were you doing on a plane in the first place? Body dysmorphia. Yeah, I know. Andrew, I'm with you on this. Body dysmorphia is a serious, serious issue. Believe me, I know this. I have very close friends who've got kids, teenagers, who are going through this, who are doing shocking things. It's awful. Awful. I'm not dismissing it, but there are people who take the mickey, and you know it. And, you know, body dysmorphia is a very real thing, not helped by Love Island and all those other crap programs. But too many people taking advantage, says Andrea Lucas. Yeah. They could save fortunes. Fortunes. The department that I was hired to work for was there to save money, not by cutting jobs, by being sensible. In the first 12 months, they saved £400 million. £400 million in the first year. Dave Sleet, every colour of politics have tried to get the NHS out of state coffers. The limited provision was A&E and long-term care for those without means to pay. We've discussed in the past, haven't we, Phil, that when you got an appointment, when those happy days when you could get an appointment and then people didn't show up.
Now, that is one thing for straight away. That is one place that they could absolutely make a massive difference. If someone books an appointment, they should have a card or credit card taken over the phone. Or actually, not even just taken, it should be on their account already.
Oh, that's a clever
Everyone, everyone has NHS records. As soon as you are a no-show or you don't cancel within a reasonable amount of time, you're fined £100. Simple. Because that would actually earn money for the NHS whilst encouraging people not to waste their time.
I wouldn't set it. That is a freaking genius idea. Do you know why? £100 is too much. £100 is too much.
£100 is too much?
Yeah. If you're working 3 jobs, you got kids, you're a single
It's a
mom.
hell of an incentive, believe me.
There could be legitimate reasons, and £100 could send somebody over the edge. Let's not be silly about it. But if you set it at 20 quid, let's just say, that's automatically debited. Good luck trying to implement it, but it's a great idea, because the problem we've always said is, oh yeah, then you've got to get people to issue the fines. So you need a huge layer of bureaucracy. It would cost millions to set it up. If you just had a credit, Phil, that is absolutely spot on. You register your credit card, boom, 20 quid comes off if you don't show up. Marvellous. That is so damn clever, because it cuts through the layers of bureaucracy that you need. Goes straight into an NHS account. The end. Paul Andrews is saying it might well happen now. Now COVID has forced a proper NHS database into being. Let me just say this, and I'm not telling tales out of school, but I was at basically when I was working for the Department of Health as a consultant, it went like this. There was me, there was my boss, who was the director. The director reported directly into the Minister of Health, or the Health Minister, who reported directly into the Prime Minister. Some of the stuff that I wrote, I know, you think I'm such an arse. You're not wrong. Some of the stuff that I wrote went straight to number 10 with the director. So there was no middleman. Literally, I'd write stuff, or it went to a what are those called? Parliamentary committees. So I had to prepare briefing notes and all that. Yeah, it was heavy duty. It was heavy duty stuff. But I was called in initially, and this just gives you an insight into the enormous bureaucracy of the NHS to create a website. And what they didn't have, and you think, you got to be kidding me, you don't have this, was a website that linked all the primary care trusts, what they're called the PCTs, and linked all of that, and then you could see where you were in England and you knew who to contact. It didn't exist. Well, that took like forever. But where I got upset was they redid the website 3 or 4 times. And I thought, why are you doing this? This is crazy. Why are you redoing this? But they saved £400 million in 1 year. That's the thing. Linda Dave. I know someone who works for the what? What is this? What is your mum saying? Who's the Shans? Is it San the Shans?
Oh, I suspect that that's my mother not. I suspect that that's my mother not checking her work, and actually that's autocorrect kicking in. I know someone who works for the NHS. They spend a fortune on getting interpreters for foreign patients, and they don't even show up. Well, I suspect that the correct terminology now, mother, would be non-English speaking patients, because they're not necessarily all, quote, foreign. But at the same time, I think that what she means is that it's that kind of thing they waste money on. Sure enough, she means NHS.
Do you know how much it is? Do you know how much an interpreter is? It's £100 an hour.
Oi, oi.
No, an interpreter is £100. It's costed out at £100 an hour.
You see, I think, I'm sorry, it should be on the it should be on the patients. If they need a translator, they should pay for that.
Come on.
That's
God
not,
forbid.
me,
let's just reverse
it
for a second.
That's not medical care. No, excuse me, that's not medical care.
But Phil, God forbid, let's just say you're in France, all right? Mm-hmm. And you're not in the lovely company of Françoise Pascal. You're on your Todd.
Yep.
And something happens and you don't speak fluent French and it's a complicated thing. You're going to find an interpreter when you're feeling like,
No. You don't find it. NHS have got their interpreters lined up. That's no problem at all.
Oh, you pay for the interpreter?
You pay for it. You want that service, you pay for that. That's not medical. I don't care what anyone says.
Do you know what? You're in rocking form. Why the hell, if 2 idiots like us can dream this up, why can't it be implemented? Can't be, because the people thinking about this are much cleverer than we'll ever pretend to be. But that's absolutely right. You need an interpreter. There's an interpreter there for you, but you're going to pay for it. That sounds fair.
The amount of money as well that the NHS spent on getting leaflets printed in different languages as well. It's absolutely shocking.
Well, I don't have the exact figures. There's something like 7 languages, aren't there?
I don't have it in exact figures, but I just think it's appalling. I'm sorry.
Well, yes and no. You're printing... I'd argue with that because I had to write
Your printing costs go up 7-fold.
No, hang on. No, they don't print it entirely in a foreign language because I had to write loads of leaflets and stuff like that as well. So you'll have it in English, but you will have other, whatever they're saying, in other languages. There's no extra cost for that. None. You're not printing it entirely in, Turkish. I'm picking a language at random. It could be whatever you like. It could be in anything. Michael Verby, luxuriating on a sunbed in I don't know, I've got a mental image. Stacey running around after you. Also, too many layers of pen pushers in the NHS. Whoa. He's
My mother reckons
successful.
I should be health secretary. Now, do you see the kind of pressure I'm under? Seriously,
I can see
I've just
that,
got
yeah.
I've just got a national radio show. She now wants me to be health secretary. What can I
Well,
do?
you know,
There's
she's
no
got
pleasing.
high hopes. She's got very high hopes for you. You're 34, you're cutting it a bit fine. Just putting it out there, Philip. You're cutting it a little fine.
Ramsey says the NHS is one of the best things about this country. Amen to that. If the country did a better job of taxing the big corporations and plugging the tax avoidance schemes by the billionaires and multimillionaires, the NHS could be properly funded. Not sure I agree with that completely, but we'll keep going. Many countries are jealous of the scheme we have here, far better than many of our American colleagues and friends
Totally.
who are always one serious illness away from losing their homes.
Yep.
Yes, waste and non-attendance could be improved, but that is true of all organisations.
Yes,
so
it is, but
Ramsey-
we're not paying for all organisations, are we?
No.
Ramsey's
and
right.
Mitre said
Ramsey's
the
right.
the point that Ramsey makes about taxing billionaires and multimillionaires, tax avoidance schemes, I'm sorry, you might not morally agree with it, but it is legal. And there is nothing wrong with it. Just saying. Okay, I really don't have a problem. If people can legally not pay as much tax as some people would like them to pay, there is no problem with that. Absolutely none whatsoever. You might not like it, but it doesn't mean there's something wrong with it. But if you are evading tax by not declaring everything, well, then absolutely let the law come down on you like a ton of bricks. Make no mistake. But I really, really object to what is unfortunately tantamount to jealousy with people. I'm not saying with you, Ramsey, but it's just the natural default. When people see billionaires, multimillionaires not paying the amount of tax that some people would like them to pay, then they get annoyed by it. Why? That's ridiculous.
What I'd like to do is just shift that slightly along, because it's a complete moral debate. Ramsey's point is highly valid. Your point is morally it's dubious, legally there's no problem. However, when you have gigantic corporations making literally not millions, billions of pounds here, and they're paying, the tax of someone who works in a sweet shop, it's an absolute bloody nonsense. It's a nonsense.
Then the law needs to be changed. You can't blame those companies.
No, you don't blame that. If they say you can drive at 200 miles an hour through a street with schools, and that's the law, and you drive at 200 miles an hour, then that's the law, isn't it? Kimmy Lashmar goes, yay! After a few pathetic and pointless questions, I've eventually got a time slot to see a doctor. Then it was, no, we've not had a cough. Well, that's all right, you can run in the 2:30 at Lingfield Park. And yes, I'll wear a mask. I can't help but think that a 91-year-old woman with dementia, Jesus, is a waste of their precious time. By the way, before dementia kicked in, she'd never had any health issues and saved the NHS a fortune all her life. They don't
Kimmy, that's
care,
no, but you know,
Kimmy.
Kimmy, that
they
is the
don't
point.
care.
That's
They
exactly
couldn't give
my
them
point.
monkeys.
I have often thought it makes absolutely no sense that the longer someone pays into the system, the worse they are treated. What the hell is all that about? Seriously. You see
It sucks.
geriatric patients waiting out on trolleys in the middle of corridors, waiting to be seen because they don't have enough beds. Tough. Prioritise them. They are the ones who've paid into the system as long as they have. And I've no doubt, Kimmy, that your mother is no exception to the rule. But if you pay into a system all of your life, funding it,
Yeah, you're funding it.
damn right you should be put to the top of the priority list.
Do you know what it is? Is because unlike, say, Japan, or I would say Italy, or I would say Spain, Britain treats its elderly like crap. They don't care. Every lifetime you get somebody like Captain Tom comes along and everyone goes, oh, isn't he wonderful guy, magnificent, a shining example of what a human being can achieve at any point in their life, right? But everybody else gets treated like garbage. We live in a youth-oriented society where youth are meant to be fantastic, and everybody over 30 is a pain in the arse and should just die, and that's really the bottom line. So, there you've got Kimmy's mum, who's 91 years old, and being pushed from pillar to post. What the hell? What the hell? You get to a feeling in life. I discuss this a lot with my friends. You think, what do they think? We're just in the way? Screw them.
Ramsey goes on to say, Russ is right. The big companies that pay little tax at a percentage far less than you or I do in our business need to pay more. They're happy to hire staff that were educated by the state and fixed by the NHS. They make billions in profits. But yes, Ramsey, at the same time, you could also say they pump billions into the economy by paying the wages of those staff members, who in turn will obviously pay the appropriate amount of tax in some people's eyes. Furthermore, they'll also spend the money in this country, pumping it back into the economy. It does swing in roundabouts, you know.
It does. But have you been Andrea Lucas, Russ, have you been taking to my... Well, I've never met your daughter. I wasn't sure you had a daughter, so I haven't been taking to her. I mean, I haven't got her trapped in my cellar or anything if you think that I've kidnapped your daughter. No. Have you been talking to my daughter? No. I don't know what that means. Andrea, expand, if you won't. Michael Verby, unfortunately, many old people are neglected by their own families in the UK. As my daughter always says to me, be nice to me, Dad, because I'm the one who's going to choose your care home. She's right. She's right. You know, it's very hard. Phil won't get this. Phil, oh, hang on. Ramsey comes back. Ramsey, it's not jealousy, Phil. It is it, I'm so sorry. Is it moral for a sheikh or Russian oligarch to live here tax-free in a mansion with gold taps when our own citizens live in rotten houses? It's not apples and apples, Ramsey. Does it annoy me? Yeah. Do I think it's sick? Yeah. Is it illegal? No. Do I think they've made their money fairly? Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. Highly dubious how they probably made their money, let's be honest about it. But, you know, they've made the money. If they want to buy a mansion and fit gold baths, that's down to them. There's nothing we can do about it. Now it is what it is.
I am a stickler, first and foremost, for abiding by the law. And as far as I'm concerned, yes, the law might not always be something that one agrees with by any stretch of the imaginations. There are many laws out there that I'm sure we could all sit here and list and say, I don't agree with this is wrong. But the point is that the law is common ground. The law is something that is there for all of us, no matter what our backgrounds, no matter how wealthy we are, no matter how poor we are, no matter what our religion is, for every single one of us to stick to. It's common ground. It means that we are all treated the same way. We might not necessarily think of it as fair to us in our situation, but it means that it's common and it's central. And if someone is sticking to the law, I have no problem. I have a heck of a more of a problem with someone who is breaking the law. And in exactly the same way that up until very recently, the law stated that when using certain public situations, one should cover their mouth and their nose to protect the vulnerable. The fact that so many people just had a blatant disregard for it and thought it was irrelevant.
Couldn't give a toss.
I have more of an issue with that than I do about some Russian oligarch who's such a minority. It doesn't bother me. Really doesn't bother me. But it does bother me when people break the law. So, yes, we could talk about morality, but honestly, morals are subjective. The law is common ground.
When the Middle Eastern guys, I used to sit with my late friend who I miss every single day, Francis Maguire, and we'd sit in South Ken outside and watch all the crazy young Arab guys driving insane sports cars round and round and round. And they'd have them all shipped in from the Middle East because they'd come to London for a period of time in the summer when it was too hot in the Middle East and London was a fun playground. And you could take various views on it. I found it entertaining to see all the cars going by and they're all showing off. It was ridiculous. Francis would get up, if they had the exhaust tuned on a Lamborghini, he'd knock on the window and go, "Hey, it didn't come out of the factory sounded like that," and they knew what they were doing. And the guys would drive off because they probably didn't speak English. On the other hand, the amount of money that coming in that went into the restaurants and the hotels and everything else was great for the British economy. So, you know, I didn't sit there with steam coming out of my ears. It is what it is. I can't really I'll be honest with you, Ramsey, I can't get particularly worked up about sheikhs having mansions which they might use for 1 week of the year and the rest of the time the staff look after it. Okay. And I'm not going to get involved in Russian oligarchs because I don't want a bullet in the back of my head. So I think I'll just avoid the whole subject, if you don't mind. Ramsey says, I agree with you, Phil, read the law. That applies to the international law too, such as... Where are we going with this? Such as in the Middle East? I'm completely lost now. I'm honestly, Ramsey, I'm lost now. Where are we going with that? Don't understand. You have to come back with me on that. I don't know. And Andrea says, her daughter... God, do you want to read this? Because she's your mate. Do you want to read this? Whew.
Right. Andy says... Where does she say what?
Well, I'll catch it up because I don't.
No, I don't see it. Actually, I genuinely don't see
that. We're talking about her. She said, "Have you been talking to my daughter?" I said, "I don't know your daughter." And she says about wanting the sick and ill to die.
I see.
Wow. Well, your daughter probably has a lot of friends and people who agree with her. They don't care. You're sick. You're ill. Piss off this planet. You're in the way. Just die. And that's how they view it. That's how they view it. But if you did that, why would we ever set up men's radio and women's radio? Why? Oh, you got mental health problems? Well, it's not. What the hell's it got to do with me? Sod you. Get on with it or die. I mean, it's shocking. You can't be like that in life. You can't be like that in life. I always feel if you're not giving something back, even in a small way, it just helps. It just makes you feel like a better person, I think. Anyway, that was kind of my...
In other news, I'm afraid...
What? What's the matter?
That Paul Claridge has been busy with his artwork again.
Oh, God.
I can only apologise for what you're about to see.
Cold War Steve. He is Cold War Steve, is Paul Claridge. Go on.
I'm afraid you might not be able to unsee this, for which I can only apologise.
God.
Oh, there we go. For those of you who are listening to this and can't see what we can see on screen, we now have a situation where Russ has taken he's taken the dog's head, Ebony's head.
My little mini schnauzer, yeah.
Has been superimposed onto his. And for some reason, I have taken on the head of E.T. with the towel wrapped around my head. Isn't that nice?
That is
there you
killing
go.
me. Oh, God. I still say that, my little dog has kept me sane. A lot of people, I get very upset when their pets have died over this period, and wow, it's hit them hard. And I would be bereft. Absolutely bereft. I know so many of us would. It's extraordinary, the symbiotic nature we have with our pets. Cats, dogs, and Rosemary Jessup's case, horses. A lot of you like horses. Not for me, but... I don't get it.
Oh, that is the meaning of my name.
That was E.T. I assumed it was Mick Jagger. Jeez.
You know that?
Cruel.
The word Philip, or the name Philip, stems from lover of horses.
Does it? Stems from lover of horses.
Derives from Greek.
They did a play about you. It was called Equus.
I don't think I like horses that much, but yes.
Oh, okay. Just checking. I'm just checking. Just putting it out there. Hey, gang, I've got to tell you what. You know that my very, very kind friend, Larry Viner, donated to me because he had a spare this stand-up desk.
Oh, yes. Are you standing up again?
Yeah. I'm just standing up.
You're on your stand-up desk. Good work.
That's all I
Get
use.
it your stand-up desk.
What's that? What?
I said, get it your stand-up desk. Because you do comedy, it's a joke. Stand-up desk.
Anyway,
it's
really good. It's very good. It really is. I recommend this. I was skeptical. I've read about this, and I know it's the new one. I thought, well, this is some newfangled thing. It's a fabulously solid construction. If you want to know more about it, you can just message me on Facebook. Not cheap. But it's really good. And if I want to sit down, I can just pull a couple of handles and the whole thing folds down automatically. It's an interesting way to work. Standing up, writing, doing the emails, doing everything that you do. You're standing up, you're not sitting down. Much better for your back. Definitely.
Paul Andrews reckons we need to find a dust ball emoji.
Yeah. Dave Sleet is showing off now, out on another training walk for the half marathon well-being walk. You guys are laugh out funny. Something's gone wrong,
Thanks.
obviously.
Do you know,
The looks
if
on
actually-
people on the beach are hilarious. Thank you.
Can I just say, actually, if it was the case of walking a half marathon,
I could do that.
I genuinely think I'd be up for it. It's the running I can't cope
Well, I
with.
can't
I
do
didn't
that.
even realise there was a walking thing, because I love walking.
Where's he said walking? He hasn't. Oh, the well-being walk. Oh, you're right.
Because
Read
I
the text,
because,
Russell. That would help, wouldn't it?
Because I was thinking
well-being
yesterday,
walk.
because yesterday
Yeah,
I'd finished, I'd started work at my usual time of 4 a.m., which is fine. I'm not sort of angling for sympathy. I'm just
Slacker.
stating a fact. I'm not genuinely not angling for sympathy. It's relevant to the story. Started
for
work
me.
at 4 a.m. and then finished at about 5 p.m. If it weren't for the fact that I had to get back in a hurry and go to sleep quite quickly, I was genuinely toying with the idea of walking from where I am in London Bridge to Euston Station, because that's where I need to catch my train from. But I would have been way up for walking it. I wouldn't have thought anything of it. But the problem was, sadly, I had to get back in a hurry. But I may well do that today. Who knows?
I tell you what, I walk Ebony late at night because it's been so boiling hot, as you may have noticed. So I wait until the sun's gone down, and it's really rather pleasant. And I love walking. I listen to one of my audiobooks, which I adore. And shall I recommend a book? That'd be a good
Why
thing.
not, indeed?
We never do
You don't
that.
hear me plugging anything.
It's not my book. I've got no connection. It's just that people enjoy audiobooks. No, I won't do it now. You've upset me. I'm
You
broigus.
can do what you want. I'm reading an email. Don't worry about me.
No, I won't. Dear Phil, you're fired. Yours sincerely, Rebecca Brooks. It's hilarious, says Veronica Curran. You've really pissed him off now. Veronica Curran up in Edinburgh says this. It's hilarious. A dog cost his owner a small fortune in vet bills. The dog had started... This is brilliant. The dog had started walking strangely for the vet to realise the dog was mimicking his owner's injury.
Wow.
Isn't that adorable?
That's amazing.
That is just adorable.
I didn't even know dogs would do that.
We used to have, when my big kids were little kids, a collie cross called Coco. Absolutely adored it. Fabulous, fabulous dog, this collie cross. A gorgeous dog. And if we were ever... Back in the happy days when you'd take your kids away for a holiday, you'd be going on holiday, right? And you'd pack what we used to call in those days a suitcase. And we'd be packing the suitcase. So Coco could spot this and realise that the kennels was a beckoning. So all of a sudden she'd start limping into the room, limping. And then she'd limp out the room and we, oh my God, we're going to have to cancel, we have to get to the vet and everything. And then my daughter, who was a little tiny tot at the time, said, Daddy, every time she comes in, she's limping on the other paw. She was just making it up. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her at all. She just, I think I'll just limp a little bit, get some sleep. She was such a little tinker. Gorgeous dog, loved her. Paul Andrews says, I walk the dog listening to I'm Sorry I Haven't a... I love that. I'm sorry, I haven't a clue. Needless to say, the dog thinks I'm in trouble when they guffaw with laughter out the blue. I love that. I've got that downloaded on audiobooks. I've also
do you mind if I just say, good work on using the word guffaw? It's not a word that's used
I
often
love
enough.
that word. Guffaw. It's a great word. Some of the words when we were kids, you never hear anymore, like knit. You absolute knit. Or clot. Do you remember?
I get called something very similar.
Yeah. Like clot, but not quite. But clot was a great thing. They'd always do that in comics, wouldn't they? You know, in Desperate Dan. You clot. It was marvellous. Those words were just absolutely gone. Paul Andrews,
No, it's actually another one as well you never hear anyone say anymore. It's something like oopsie daisy or something like that. There's probably a very good reason for it.
I say it.
Do you actually?
Oopsie daisy. I actually say it. Yeah, oopsie daisy.
Oh,
Poppycock.
good
Oh, it's another
Paul
one, Paul.
Andrews.
That's great. Poppycock.
You're listening to
May I
BBC
say so?
Norwich. What
May I
favourite
say
words did you used to use that you don't hear anymore?
But it's the evolution of language. You know, when
No,
you
it's
hear...
the decimation of language. Let's not beat about the bush here.
Well, I used to think that, but then I realised that language is a living thing. because I used to get very annoyed when you hear, I'm not going to do it because these days you can't do it, but when you hear like white guys trying to talk street, and it's absolute nonsense, but you realise that is actually how you speak. They're not putting it on. That's how they talk. You go into round where I am, right? Around where I live, you go into the shops and everything, and that's how everybody speaks, and that's the language. That's how it has evolved into that.
Well, look, very quickly, because I can't our next guest, or our first guest, I should say, is actually waiting very patiently in the green room, very kindly laughing in the right places. But what happened was
drugs.
Yeah, I know, right? Anyway, what happened was one radio station that I used to work at a few years back, which was actually in the middle of a shopping centre, which sounds as grim as it was.
I know where it was. Yeah.
Actually, it was jolly good fun.
Yeah.
So sit in the middle of this shopping centre in the studios as people would walk past. Now, forever, there were loads of customers that were forever going via the radio station to the early learning centre. At least that's what I assumed they were doing when they were trying to pull faces at me and trying to make me laugh on air. Anyway, but the point is that when there was one time a chap mistook it for an information centre, and then he realised very quickly it wasn't. Now, he was some sort of youth of some description that I'm not going to go...
He was a youth.
Not going to go too much into the details of his heritage, because technically it's not relevant. But what is relevant is the fact that he decided to say to me pretty much live on air, luckily I'd just gone to a track, this station played music.
You've gone for what?
Gone to a track.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said something else and you had to go to the toilet. Sorry.
You really need to get those ears washed out. Anyway,
I do, actually. Right. I used to need to see
Robbie. He poked his head round the door. He poked his head round the door, and it was shut at the time, so he didn't like that very much. But he poked his head round the door, and he said to me, I can't do the voice exactly, but he just said something like, "Excuse me, can I spit on the microphone?" And I said, I beg your pardon.
Yes. Oh,
and he said, "Can I spit on the microphone?"
On the microphone, yeah.
And I just said, "Well, I'd rather you didn't." And so
he said, polite. I said,
I said, no. I said, but other people have got to use this microphone. It might be it might put germs on it. So he said, no. Talk into the microphone. I said, well, what do you mean then? When you say spit into the microphone? And apparently, I had never heard it before, but spit on the mic is street slang for actually using a microphone. Never heard that before. Yeah. And there you go.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So there you go. You can call that progression of language if you want. I call it insanity.
I don't call it progress.
I call perfectly honest with you.
No, here's the thing.
Evolution.
No, I don't call it progress, because it's not blooming progress, but it's the evolution of the way it is. Everyone went on about estuary language and the thing like that. You speak very nicely. I speak as I do, and it's kind of it's not the rule. It's the exception. It's just the way it is. I've never ever forgotten when Gary Crowley...
One does have to realise that, unfortunately, we no longer live in a day and age where people go on air and they talk in this sort of fashion. It's hugely regrettable, really, because, frankly, I actually prefer listening to the British Pathé footage, where you hear all sorts of individuals talking in this manner, and I personally think it sounds mighty fine.
Here's the news. Her Majesty the Queen today... In fact, you're talking about like Pathé News. If you watch TV shows even from the 70s and you listen to the interviewers, so, Mr. Dave, you represent the Coal Miners Union here in Durham. What are your views of... And you think, wow, I thought it kind of went out in the 50s or early 60s. Not at all. It was much more recent.
And what's strange, and what was really strange, is it was the coal miners who spoke like that. But anyway.
It was. I'm quite concerned about the conditions 2,000 feet underground. I found the catering somewhat limited, to be perfect.
Oh, for the love of God, Dexter Moscow, please save us. Welcome to Men's Radio, sir.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Lovely to be here, and lovely to hear your conversation about language, which I think is really important. May I just add one thing? The one thing that really winds me up when I'm sitting on a bus, even in COVID times, listening to school kids say, like, and like this, and like
Oh,
that.
don't. Oh, please. No, not that, please.
But
Like,
Dexter,
or basically, or everyone starts a
basically,
sentence with so.
basically.
Everyone
Dex-
starts
yeah.
a sentence with
So-
so.
So anyway,
Why? Ugh.
so the classic.
Oh, there we go.
The classic sentence would go, so anyway, I'm not being funny, Dexter, right, in it. And the word in it, which is INNIT, is used as a punctuation. I mean, really, instead of saying the word comma or the word pause, but it is what it is. There's no point in, us at a certain, well, Dexter, you and I at a certain age going, well, this is all. It is what it is, and language is a living thing, as much as I deplore some of it. It's how it is. There's no point railing against it.
But don't you find that some language, you talked about street language, don't you find that that's an exclusion? That really, I'm about communication as you are about communication. And good communication is not about excluding people. But I find that street language does exclude people. And I don't think it helps young people to have that kind of attitude. They need to communicate more effectively.
I think, you know what, I would agree, but you've got to take a slightly, I didn't even know we were going to go with this, Dexter, by the way. But I'm very happy to, because linguistics and language, I love all that, having been a writer most of my life. So if you go back to, I don't know, the James Dean or the Wild Ones with Marlon Brando, when that was all seen as incredibly edgy, and they were going, yeah, daddy-o, and phrases that we laugh at. But it was a language that, hey, cool, you're a cool cat, daddy-o, and all of that sort of stuff. Now you're going back to the late 40s for that, early 50s. And you only have, also you can watch some of those film noir and some of the conversations that sort of the gangsters have in the films. Again, I've never thought of that. That is such an interesting point that you raise, that street language is not inclusive, but it's designed not to be inclusive. They want their pals. I was going to say gang, but I don't mean it like that. That's pejorative. They want their pals to be able to communicate, and you, me, and Phil, and all our 99% of our listeners and viewers will go, I haven't a clue what you just said. Yeah. And they're happy with that. They don't want us to know, and I can understand that. That's what they want.
Yeah,
it's not clarity. It's not clarity. It's not clarity for us. And I don't know. I pose you this question, Dexter. Are we just old farts railing against, what we see as standard trash? Or, well, yeah, obviously. Or is it just, you used to have a fax machine. We don't have that anymore. We don't need it. So
we don't have a fax machine anymore because we were so sick of all the rolls of paper being used up by those blooming adverts that used to come through that no one ever asked for.
Yeah,
that's why we don't have fax machines anymore. They were actually an okay way of sending documents.
It's interesting, is that there has to be a development of language, and certainly words like cool are part of our daily parlance, if that's the right word. But I think, in a world where so much communication is via email or what's the Twitter and things like that, then the art of actually communicating effectively for influence and persuasion, and that's my job, to influence and persuade people, you have to tap into their mode of thinking and their mode of language, rather than say, okay, I'm going to street talk. It doesn't serve young people. I really
I agree. I tell you what makes me laugh when I'm watching TV adverts. You can't fake this stuff. Stuff is either cool or it's not cool. I remember Top Gear, when it was proper Top Gear, would have the cool wall, very cool, straight from the freezer, or rubbish basically for cars. You can't fake it. It either has it, like something's either got soul or it hasn't got soul. So when these adverts come in and they're trying desperately to appeal to young people, and they're wasting their time because young people don't watch ads, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
You know, I would cite. I don't know how you feel about this, Dexter. Like when they when they got, I don't know, what are they called, street poets talking about building societies, and I'm going, oh, shut up!
Heaven help me.
It's about finance. Could you talk
If that
to
is
me?
supposed to encourage you to go with a particular building society, I
opposite
would
effect.
suggest it does the opposite. But
It
anyway.
has the opposite effect for me. I'm going,
no.
if your marketing is that crap, that you've got to produce this, because it tells me nothing about how safe the money would be, what return of investment, nothing that an adult needs to know about. It's nonsense. It's embarrassing.
I think that, the key message is, can I emotionally connect with you? Because if I can emotionally connect with you, then I can offer you some of the logic. But to just pander to what an advertising, I'm going to get into trouble with this,
No,
an
you're not.
advertising executive turns around and says, I've got this brilliant idea. This is what we're going to do. We're going to get a street poet because that's going to attract the young people. Bad thinking. Wrong.
It won't.
Do you know,
won't-
it's
and
actually,
yeah.
I have to tell you, it's a very similar situation in many radio stations that I know as well. And this is not necessarily the path I want to go down per se. But what they are trying to do at the moment, many radio stations who have not quite cottoned on to the fact that listening habits change with age. People are not going to grow up listening to BBC Radio 3, for example, because it's more likely that they will listen to it by themselves in later life. And the fact that they are trying to, some radio stations, adapt themselves so they appeal to a younger audience is just bonkers.
It's an embarrassment.
It's totally and utterly irrelevant.
You're chasing a completely promiscuous, elusive audience that does not exist. It's a mythical audience. I know that's not why you're here, but communication.
Anyway, I was going to say, sorry.
No. It's like you keep hearing. They keep, radio stations keep bringing in, new thrusting program controllers. A program controller, if you don't know, is like the managing director of a radio station. And they go, right, we're going to get rid of all the presenters, and we're going to bring everyone in who's 12 because we're going to get that audience. You're never going to get that audience ever.
Anyway, we
You're
do
talking
digress
out of
ever
your-
so slightly, Dexter, because this is not what you're here to talk about. However good fun it is to talk about this with you.
But it's interesting stuff, and it resonates with our audience all
No,
over
totally,
the world.
but
They're getting it. Just
I
putting
fear
on some
that
Ollie Mammon ABC of CBD oil balm for my back. Jolly good.
Well, there you go. You see, I do suggest though that one of the things that what you are here to talk about, sadly, some people may be able to resonate. It may be able to resonate as well, because you're talking about coping with bereavement, growing up without your father, who you lost at a very young age. Would you be so kind as to tell us what? Well, if you are prepared to, what happened?
Yes, I was 10, and he was just 45, and was suffering from coronary thrombosis at a time where there weren't such things as stents. They hadn't been invented. Statins certainly weren't known about. And he was taken into hospital to die. And
Oh my God.
yeah, because there was
Dexter, I'm
nothing
so
they could
sorry.
do. Yeah. And
So sorry.
thank you.
Oh,
Because
horrible.
it's something that, we're talking about the book that I've written, A Voyage Without My Father. And I feel that there is a connection in this day and age. Because of my age, and at that time, kids were not allowed to go into hospital wards. So I never got an opportunity to say goodbye to my dad. And of course, in this age of pandemic, where previously, and not too many months ago, people were not allowed to go into hospitals to hold the hands of their loved
Shocking.
ones. They
Shocking.
I feel that there is an emotional time bomb that impacted me much later. When I was in my 40s, close to the age when my dad died, that's when I hit a real crisis point. And I think people of any age will start to process, yes, they will process the loss of a loved one and feel anger or grief or whatever those initial feelings are. But the real impact is going to come much later. And we can see that.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please
Can I
do.
jump in? Which is why I've followed you for a long time, as it happens, Dexter. I lost my my mum died 3 years ago. It was a merciful release, to be honest with you, and my dad died 20 years ago from cancer. And at my age now, I miss them shockingly. It's ridiculous. And I talk to my friends about it of a similar age, and I go, "This is ludicrous. You know, what is going on here?" And as time passes, I miss them more and more. I totally resonate with what you're saying. Now, I don't often pat Phil on the back because he's just bloody irritating, to be perfectly honest with you, Dexter. I'll be honest with you. I don't mind saying it.
I've known Dexter for many years. I know he knows how irritating I am. It's fine.
Well, precisely. Look, he's tolerating you. But when the pandemic started, when I closed the studio 2 weeks before lockdown, because I thought, no, and I talked to Phil, I said, we're getting out of Dodge here. The first thing that Phil said, and he said it before anybody else, honestly, in the media had even mooted this, and I thought, what the bloody hell is he talking about? And he was 100% right. That so many of the side effects of COVID, I'm not talking about the physical, I'm not talking about long COVID affecting your organs, etc. I'm talking about, putting aside the economic side, the notion that you couldn't be with your parents or grandparents when they were leaving is shocking. And I think you've used the term time bomb. Totally agree. And Phil said we are reaping things that you will not even understand, and it'll be with us for years. And Phil was absolutely right. And the more we go down this road, the more it is. I know how much this has affected me in many ways. I couldn't think of not being. God forbid I hadn't been with my dad when we actually passed, or my mom.
Yeah.
Dreadful.
And we see it, and I totally agree with you. I think that it is those life event moments, those times of bar mitzvah, wedding, children being born, grandchildren being born. And the prime example that we see in the news is the princes. They have only just now, it's 24, 25 years after Diana passed, in that very tragic way. It's only now, because they have families, they have children, that they started talking about it. And the right and wrong of the way they're talking about it is another discussion. But I think what it shows is that 24 years afterwards, they are still not even still grieving. The full impact of that grief is being felt.
Well, it's public knowledge, so I'm not saying anything that people don't know, that my wife passed when our twins were just 5 years old. And they've grown up into the most wonderful young men. I was blessed that someone came into my life who brought them up with me, and without that person, they wouldn't be the young men that they are today and as successful as they are. So, I owe her an enormous debt, and I've always made that point. But I worry myself sick every day that one day, my mum used to say, it doesn't go to your boots. You lose your mum at 5 years old. You can think, well, I was a baby, it's not going to happen. But there has, for every action, there is a reaction. And they're remarkable young guys. But nonetheless, I totally resonate with what you're saying. And Veronica Carr and Phil just put it up on the screen. Dexter, I understand I lost my dad age 13. He was just 52. It's definitely had a huge effect in my life. And Robert Elms, who's another broadcaster, another radio station, well known, often talks about the loss of his father, says Paul Claridge. Robert was only 6 years old at the time. These things are devastating events.
They are devastating events. And as we've been saying, the full impact comes much later. And may I offer something that is in the book that I found personally very releasing, and for anybody who is listening and think, that resonates with me. I've created an acronym, which is MIC. And so I found, or should I say therapists found me, and the M stands for meditation, where I was able to go to a deeper level. And the I is the imagination. I imagined that I was talking to my father as he was in the hospital bed, on his deathbed.
Oh, do you? Oh, God, do you?
It's communication. Ooh. And I had, because I had through psychotherapy, I realized that I was angry with my dad for dying. Okay, well, what do you do with that? And so
It burns you up.
It
You know
burns
what
you
anger.
up.
You know what anger does. Anger leads directly to depression. That's why it's you've got to get it out your system.
And physical illness as well.
Totally.
So
being angry is so detrimental.
And having regret as well.
Can I stop you, Dexter? I've got to ask you this. Why do you talk to your dad? I'm sorry to be blunt, and because you've surprised me. Why do you talk to your dad when he was in hospital dying, as opposed to when he was a fit guy? Why do you not talk to him in that way?
Because the feeling of anger, of him just leaving us. He was overweight. He was a chain smoker. So I stood there in my imagination and said to him, how could you leave us? Financially difficulty? How could you leave us? And it's an element of Gestalt therapy where you take both sides of the conversation. And he said to me, I didn't know. People at that time didn't know about smoking could be dangerous to the health.
Yeah.
He said, I was just doing the best I could. And when I came out of that meditative level, having had that conversation with myself, it was a tremendous weight lifted from my shoulders. And the reason I've said that is that if there are people out there who say, I wish I could speak too, you can. You can.
I speak to my parents. I speak to my parents every day.
Exactly.
Usually telling them off. Tell them to leave me alone.
Good grief. Jules Silverman, you never get over the loss of a parent or loved one. You just learn to live with it. I lost my mum when I was 6. And when I became a mum, I missed her the most. Oh, wow, Jules. Didn't know that. Sorry.
I think the thing you miss the most is not being able to pick up the phone and go, hey, guess what happened today? It's stupid stuff. It's not the big stuff. It's the little nonsense stuff, you know. Hey, guess who I ran into today? Do you remember you used to like so-and-so on TV and I saw him in the street, we had a chat? Or guess what the kids did today? It's the day-to-day nonsenses that we miss not being able to communicate. Yeah. And your life feels less rich for it. There's no two ways about it. That your life feels more barren because they're not there in your life.
Yeah. For me, I know that when my grandma, I always used to, I'm very fortunate I still have both parents, but when my grandmother died, I mean, I lost both of them in quite close succession, but when one of my grandmothers died, who I used to be exceptionally close to, I remember sort of for the first couple of years, I think it was, if ever there was something that I wanted to tell her, I'd just sort of instinctively go to call. And I wouldn't actually even think that as I was dialing the number, I thought, she's not going to answer. But that somehow didn't matter. I know it sounds really silly. I knew she wasn't going to answer. In fact, actually, I don't even think the next owner of where she lived changed the number. So for all intents and purposes, I actually got through to a total stranger and obviously didn't say anything. But it didn't really matter. It was just the process of dialing the number. Even that much helped a little bit.
You know, I don't think it's silly at all. And when you look at the television programs, and I'm thinking The Repair Shop, when you see people coming in...
Oh, God.
oh, God, I always tear up. It's pathetic. I always tear up on that.
There's nothing like testing one's emotions over a tin car in the way when you watch The Repair Shop. It's extraordinary. Anyway.
But isn't it interesting? It's not the article. Yes, it is the item that is associated with the person, with the individual. And that's, you know, it's something that they can hold on to that reminds them and then takes them back to that period when it was happy, when there were lovely things to talk about. And
now, there's furniture, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. There's furniture that I have that looks ridiculously out of place. I don't care because I look at it, it gives me great comfort, it gives me great pleasure. I have happy memories, goes back to my parents and my grandmother. I don't care. You know, it's for me, it's not for anybody else. It's not, you know, it's not a show home. And I look at it and I feel comforted. And if people don't like it, couldn't give a monkeys. Because it's nothing to do with anybody else, it's to do with me. And I totally get those, you know, those talismans. Oh my God. Veronica, you have had a rough life. My fiance, Jesus, died when he was 35. I was 27. That's the point. It all went mad for me. I bet it did. I always had chats and got angry too. We need the reality out there. How our mind health needs helping and understanding. Veronica is a regular viewer and listener. Bless her for being so open and so honest. And Dave Sleet, who's a psychological genius, says the connection remains and knowledge of the connection is comfort. I don't know if we're fooling ourselves. Are we? I don't know, but we just need it. As human beings, we just need it, Dexter, don't you think?
No, we're not fooling ourselves. And I think, and it's not my phrase, and if I can get it right, I hope I can get it right. I think actually the Queen said it when she lost Philip. And she said, love or grief is the price you pay for the love you give. And I think that is so
An amazing sentiment. An amazing statement.
Yeah. Did you say something? I'm sorry, I had to dash off and get the door because I'm the custodian. I'm the custodian of everything. Were you saying that you kept your grandmother's phone number, or have I misunderstood what you said?
Yes, so it wasn't so much as... it's not so much kept a phone number. I remember it. Actually, even now, I remember both my grandparents' phone number, my grandmother's phone number, I should say. My grandfather, one of them died before I was born, the other lost when I was about 6. So it was way before mobile phones or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But my grandmother's, I remember their landlines so clearly right now, as in if I wanted to dial it right now, I could. And it was a case of sort of in the early days, not long after I lost them, I was just saying that I used to go through the motion of actually dialing the number as if I was going to speak to them just to say something, even though I knew I couldn't say anything to them.
Phil, you might feel that that's rare. When my wife passed in 2004, I couldn't delete her mobile number off my phone. I felt it's completely illogical, it is stupid, it makes no sense. I felt it was somehow disrespectful, and I thought that would be a terrible thing to do.
I don't think
completely
it's
stupid.
I don't think it's stupid,
but I couldn't delete it off my phone. It felt so final, and I'm a realist about these things. Of course, it was bloody final, but there you go. So I understand this. Grief is. When I went to, as my grief counsellor said, I'll be honest with you, I didn't get anything out of it, but said one thing, how long should you grieve? Well, one day's too short and a lifetime's too long. Kind of it, really. That's kind of it. Ramsey says, I lost my dad when I was 15. He was 53, but my sister was 12, my brother 9 at the time, and I felt worse for them. Like Jules, I felt his loss most when I became a parent for the first time. Yeah, because you haven't got them to share. That's such an important thing you want to share with your parents, and you can't. I felt sad that my dad wasn't around to see his grandchildren. Totally. And interestingly, Ramsey and Dexter as well, that my daughter, who's obviously grown up, she misses my mum and dad, I think, probably more than I do. She adored them. She absolutely adored her grandparents, and it's an interesting. She talks about them all the time, and she's kept all sorts of mementos. So it does transcend the generations,
It does. In fact, there's a portion in the book where I say that, if you don't have a grandparent or you've lost a grandparent, when we can go into care homes and give the love that you are not able to give it to those people there. Listen to them, understand their lives. And, whenever you hear, programs like The Voice or Britain's Got Talent, and people are asked, who is your inspiration? So often it is grandparents.
That's usually because the producers write that script, Dexter. That's why.
Am I being too naive?
This is what we want you to say. This is what you'd like.
We used to manage.
My partner and I used to manage various people in the music industry. The worst decision I ever made. And they went into one of these shows before we took them on, and they were told, "Well, do you have a really sad story?" Well, I've just lost my grandmother. Can we film you by the grave? No, you can't. Well, it would really help. Can we take you to the cemetery? No, you can't. I mean, it's disgusting. Disgusting. It's repulsive. Absolutely repulsive. There
But
we go.
it's also, it has to be authentic. I mean, you were saying that before, that if somebody is not authentic, then especially this monitor, the bullshit monitor, for, if you pardon the language. If we, I as you know, for some time I work with QVC, and I coach people how to present in that environment. And the worst people to present or teach were actors, because they assumed a role.
Oh, completely. Completely. You are so right.
Yeah.
These glasses are not just glasses. They will enhance your face and give you clarity of vision. Ease it up, love. Ease it up. You're not doing Hamlet. You're selling
with
some
these
bloody
ones,
glasses.
Get them today. We'll throw in rose-tinted specs for a
we
special
need
price.
that. We definitely need that.
It's very, very hard to get people to wind back, isn't it, though, Dexter? I know it's not what I'm here to talk about, but you're fascinating, Phil. I do hope you'll come back. I do hope you'll come back, because there's so much to talk about. Do you think? Let's get on to grief, because it's a huge subject, and it's something that's very, very central to the core of what you're here for. Do you think we are taught how to try and deal with it? Do you think we're open enough to discuss our feelings about it?
I think, and it's not even think, I know that we're speaking as men to men, and I think that men are fearful of showing their vulnerability. And it's another reason that I've written the book. It is written for men to say, look, this is what I've been through, and this is how I resolve this. And the subtext is from grief to growth to gratitude. How was I able to grow out of my grief? By talking about it, by sharing what I was feeling. And vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength. So I agree 100% with you. Men do not talk about it enough. And because
Dexter, how did you overcome that fear to be able to actually start talking about things? Because I think that's the biggest stumbling block for some. It's probably the fear of the unknown and the ability to break that barrier or overcome that proverbial hurdle, whatever you want to look at it as, whatever metaphor. How did you do that?
It came as a crisis. As I say, I went into therapy after a situation, and we all like music. And again, I think I can talk about it because it is in the book, and I've got the license to do this. A song by Mike and the Mechanics, The Living Years.
Oh, don't. Oh, don't.
Merciful heavens, that song.
Oh, man.
I was driving to my office, and I could hear, I was not there that morning when my father passed away. And I started to realize I couldn't see the road ahead for the tears that were in my eyes. And I drew into the side, shaking with sobbing. And I thought, if this can have this impact on me, and I was getting very angry at the smallest things. And I have twin boys as well, in fact, twin men now. And I found myself shouting at them, never hitting them, but shouting at them. And I thought, this is a crisis point. I've got to do something about it because I can't live like this. And so I went into therapy, as I say, psychotherapy. Then I found these other therapies, which were talking therapies. And it was so releasing. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm talking to people who would not blab it around. But the whole essence of going to funerals, shivers and things like this, and rather than saying, oh yeah, I remember when I lost my dad, tell me what about this person, share with me your feelings if you're happy to do so. And that started this journey of saying, we've got to talk about it so that our partners can know how to deal with this major crisis point as it goes through our life.
It's interesting you talk about Mike and Mechanics, Living Years. I worked with somebody, I'm not mentioning any names, somebody very famous for 20 years, very big star. And last time we were together was at a party, and the band played randomly Mike and Mechanic's Living Years, and he collapsed in tears.
Yeah.
Collapsed in tears and had to go walk around the garden. He was in bits, absolutely in bits. He was very, very fond of his father, who I knew. I'd met many, many times, a charming man. He idolised him. He was a great guy. And the song was just like throwing a match onto an emotional tin of petrol. Boom. It was, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But it is funny how, well, I don't mean funny, ha. I mean, it is bizarre, more appropriately, how certain songs can do that to just one's emotions. Even something as innocent as, well, I know he occasionally listens to the show, to Leo Sayers' When I Need You. Good gracious me. I mean, just once in a blue moon, I listen to that now out of nowhere, bang. I just think, where did that come from?
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that you know, it's again talking about authenticity, isn't it? Because these words, these lyrics are not just picked out of the air. They come from somewhere deep inside. And the more they resonate and the more truthful they are, the more it impacts us emotionally. And I think, you know, that's also a release. For people who say, you know, stiff upper lip and you know, I don't cry about the loss of people. When that phrase comes up, bang, they're back in that moment. We know that our minds are like time machines, which can aid us and can not be so helpful.
Paul Andrews is adding to the mix, the tape mix. Bridge Over Troubled Water. He says, "Eek, 2 bars in and I'm a mess."
Yes.
Ramsey, you're right. Music, mental health, total connection there. No two ways about it. How do you stand? This is an awkward question, Dex, but we're all over 21. I believe, I'm not mentioning any names, I'm not going to go down that road. There are people who would be like professional widows, as I call them, or that just go on and on. And it's like their entire status in life is that they've lost somebody. We've all lost somebody, is my view. But how do you, because, all right, I just set out my table and then I'd love you to answer. I just think it dilutes in some way, because you get annoyed with it, but it dilutes the whole thing about mourning, about grieving, because you don't want to, it's not an income stream. It's a personal thing. You see what I'm saying, Dexter? It's a personal thing. You don't want to make money because you've lost somebody. I think that's just horrible.
Yeah.
But it's there and it exists in our society, and I think it dilutes how ordinary people like you, me, and all our listeners around the world feel when they lose somebody.
Yes. I know exactly what you mean, and I know exactly the kind of person that you mean. The challenge, or no, let's state it. The problem is that how long before you can start moving forward? If you invest yourself in grief to show people how poorly you are, that doesn't help. There has to be that. There are 7 stages of grief, and acceptance is the point at which we can release. We must never ever lose the person. And you know, one of my mantras is, they may have gone from our gaze, but they live in our hearts and our minds forever. But then, and you mentioned it, it's the happy times. Move on from the grief. That's the bit of the growth that I like. You know, you move on from the grief. You will never, ever get rid of it completely. But if you can say, I remember the good times, that helps our health. It helps their health.
I always think it's like grief, it is when it hits you the first time. It's like having a migraine, and you want to, some people pronounce it migraine, and you want to smash your head against a brick wall because that pain would be less than the thing. And eventually it goes down to a thumping headache, and then it goes to a dull ache. And then eventually it's like a very low, resonating sound that you can learn to live with. And there'd be lots of times when you're not hearing it. But sometimes when it comes back, you think, no, I can cope with it. You'll never escape it all the time. It's quite impossible. And it's unnatural.
Yes.
Unnatural to expect that you can do it. You're setting yourself up for a fall.
Yes.
And I've thought about this very carefully. But, you have to get on with life. And the other thing is, would the person that you've lost, your parents, your grandparents, whoever it might be, would they want you to be a miserable, crying, jagged wreck? Of course they bloody wouldn't. They loved you.
Yes.
They would want you to get on with your life. Now, that is not an excuse to, hey, I've just buried my dad and I've just got some money, so I'm off to the Ferrari shop. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying they would want you to enjoy your life because that's what they'd want for you, because they love you as a person.
Yes. Tonight, I wrote a poem called The Ode to COVID, and the last line of it is to live your life as they would want you to live your life. Not as, no, is that the right one? Live your life as they would want you to live. So, yes.
They being, hang on, Dexter, they being?
The person that has gone.
Okay.
The person that has gone. Because they would not want us to live our lives through grief. They would want us to live our lives through the happy times. And that's the gratitude, the gift. And it's very difficult to talk about gifts when we're looking at this pandemic. But there are gifts. There are gifts that they give us. What gift did my father give me, leaving me when I was 10 years old? He said, through our conversation, take the note that I was not there for you, so you can be there for your sons. And that will resonate with you, that because your wife wasn't there, it made you a better father. Because you had to be there.
People go on about it. I don't think I had a choice. I don't think it was anything special on my part. I had, somebody who came into my life who was extraordinary. The most thankless job in the world. We could devote hours to that. I'm not going to go into it now, because this is someone who's very private. But, it's an absolute thankless job. But what choice do you have? You can either lie down in the gutter and die, or you can say, well, I've got to get on. And you have to get on. And that's it. It's not being disrespectful to those you've lost. You have to get on. That is life, because things don't stop. And the other thing about grief, and I'm sorry to say this because it sounds horrible, the tax man, the electricity company, your landlord, your mortgage company, these people couldn't give a monk. They don't give a shit. They don't care. You've got to make a living. You've got to put food on the table, a roof over the head. All of that continues. And it's tough. But you have to accept that that is how life is. Life isn't fair. It's a random lottery. So all of those things you have to continue.
Yeah. And
when people say, how could you do it? Well, you have to do it. That's how you have to do it.
Yeah. Can I give you an example which resonates with what you just said? My mother married again, and as luck would have it, as with your second wife, you married again, or you?
No. We've been together forever, but we've never.
Right.
I don't know. We're just happy as we're happy as we are.
Well,
every time we think about it, something comes up, so we're fine.
The label
we're fine. It works beautifully for us. That's all I got to say on the subject. I'm leaving it at that, because that's all private stuff. I don't talk about it.
My mum married again, and Jack was just a wonderful grandfather. He was the only grandfather my sons knew. And tragically, he contracted pancreatic cancer.
Oh, crumbs.
And he had a year of being very unwell. And I was there right at the point of his passing, and helped and looked after him with my sister-in-law as his life ebbed away. And that's tragic. That's grief. But what it did was able, and it's very difficult to talk about, I was able to lay the ghost that I wasn't there for my own father, that I could be there for my stepfather.
Fair enough. Of course.
So
of course,
things are very, very strange. Very strange.
No, but to me that makes perfect logical and emotional sense. Absolutely. Dave Sleet, carry their smile, their laugh, their lessons with you for always.
Bravo.
Yeah, Dave, I do that, and every time I back a horse, it loses. So I am carrying on the family tradition of being a crap gambler. Totally. I think I'm joking. Oh, God. This is interesting from Paul Andrews. See what you think about this, Dexter. I'm currently writing a course on memory techniques, and we do cover music-evoked autobiographical memories, memes it's called. Music and smells have a strong effect on bringing back memories, don't they? Just.
Oh, boy.
Bang, you can be transported like that. Of course you can.
It bypasses our synapses and goes immediately to the feeling elements. Music is incredible. But one of the other pieces of music, again, my dad died on the 23rd of November, just before, obviously, the Christmas time. And at that time, the song that they played on the radio the whole time was Nat King Cole's The Little Boy That Santa Claus Forgot. And it's another record that takes me back. But it can have healing, songs can have healing elements as well, to bring back that lovely memory. So yeah, I agree with that, absolutely.
It's not, but you have to be. I think when you fight it, you have problems. I think you've got to go, all right, I'm feeling that. I'm aware that I'm feeling that. I'll process it in my own way. Everybody has an individual way. There's, when guests come on and they prescribe, you've got to do this. I kind of, mentally, I'm out of there, because I think we're all individuals and you've all got to deal with something as huge as grief in your own way.
Yes.
You can ask for advice, but you eventually will deal with it in the only way that you can deal with it.
Yes.
And that's all there is. We're too hard on ourselves. I honestly think we're too hard on ourselves all the time. We beat ourselves up about, I shouldn't be feeling this, I should be. No, it is what it is. You'll get through it when you're ready to get through it. Yeah. It could be a few months, it could be a few years, it could be forever. Who knows? But you'll learn to cope. Let's dash across to New York City and say good morning to Elizabeth Green. Oh no, you're not in New York, you're in Jamaica. Well, let's dash across to Jamaica and say good morning to Elizabeth.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it is interesting. How did you cope with? And here's something that I think that's important. The pandemic pressed a lot of people's buttons, all for the worst. Let's be honest about it. I'm the first to admit it. It hit me hard. How did you get through it? Or getting through it, or still in it? I don't know where the hell we are with it now. I've lost the plot, to be honest.
I think initially, I really had to rethink how, because as a coach, as somebody that helps people present more effectively, standing in the front of the room or pitching to a client, I thought, how can I make that work differently? And of course, it was full circle. In fact, there wasn't much thinking to be done. QVC is selling through a television screen. And so that's what I do now with my clients. How do you sell your product, services, and yourself through Zoom or the other StreamYard and the other facilities that we have on offer? So I just, if you like, I hate that word pivoting, actually, because it's not a 360 degree. It's kind of just moving to the side, and what would seem to be a brick wall could be just a paper wall. And so what I did was to say, okay, let me help you present more effectively when you go to a networking event or you're just chatting to a client. Let me help you present yourself in the best way.
Give us a top tip. I know we're not paying you for it, but give us just one top tip. Go on. Just a
top tip is...
right, Phil and I are at an event, say in a pub in the middle of nowhere tomorrow, and we
which is not necessarily unfathomable.
No, I don't think I'm going to be there because I'm a bit worried about people. But go on, we're there. Tell Phil how to...
Oh, thanks. Do you notice that? Put this
Yeah,
on me.
Phil.
Tell Phil
I
what to
tell
do
you
now.
what,
Right.
Yeah, tell Phil what to do. He's going to be there.
this
probably
will not be difficult for you because you do it all the time. The key to
What, borrow
influence.
money? Buy me a drink?
Shut it.
Jeez.
Well, I'm not sure about
Anyway.
that.
Get me another whiskey. I'm thirsty. Yeah.
The key to influencing, persuading anybody is to tell a story. And the story, if I may give you this framework, because this was the QVC style framework, where you create the emotional connection so that people buy into you personally. And the story has three elements: the incident, the action, and the benefit. So the incident is about 15 seconds, the overarching element of the story. The action is about a minute and a half of what actually took place. And then the benefit, that 15 seconds, which could be encapsulated to about 7 or 10 words, is what does that mean to you? What does it mean to me? And what does it mean to you? So it's the WIFM, what's in it for me and what's in it for you. So when you construct stories, and recently I've been working with someone who was going for a very big interview, a very important interview, panel discussion for a major software company. And he showed me this deck of slides that he was going to use. And I said, where is you? Where is you in this story? They know from your CV what you can accomplish and what you've accomplished, but tell me about you. Tell me your story. So that's my top tip. When you are in front of an audience, tell the stories that illustrate the message that you want to convey, knowing that that is going to resonate with them.
Well, you certainly told your story, Dexter, and we are incredibly, incredibly grateful to you for doing
That was
so.
slick.
You see what I did?
That was slick. You've been taking notes, haven't you? You've been taking communication notes.
This is why you've got me here, Russ, is that I am...
why you get the big bucks.
I am the thread that binds this show together, anyway. But perhaps you would be so kind...
Dexter, have you ever heard such bullshit coming out of someone who looks like they're actually telling the truth? It's fantastic. That's how Phil gets away with it.
What I do, I
absolute
laugh for a
crap.
living.
He talks absolute. He could sell anything because everyone goes, "Oh, he looks so sweet."
I'm going to plead the game of cards defense. You can say that. I couldn't possibly comment.
Yeah, precisely. I can possibly comment.
It's fine. You've got permission, Dexter.
Dexter, it's been an absolute.
Several
It's been
years
a
of
delight.
servitude. You've got permission. So.
Please come back. Please come back because I think there's loads more, and I bet people will have loads more questions for you as well. I think that's really, really interesting.
Definitely.
I've enjoyed every moment of it. I really have.
Well, we've kept you on 15 minutes longer than the average guest, so you've done something right. So there you go.
Thank you. I love it. We've spoken before, and it was great. Thank God this time we haven't had an interrupted signal. But I really appreciate you allowing me to have a chat, something that is so close to my heart.
It's our pleasure. It's very, very important because you're talking to people all over the world, and grief unifies us all in a million different ways. But we're all going to experience it because, in the immortal words of Jim Morrison of The Doors, no one here gets out alive.
Thank God for that. I thought you meant light my fire. I thought, the hell are you going with this? Anyway.
You're ruining
Anyway.
You're weeing on my parade. Right, Dexter, you take care.
You too, gentlemen. Thank you very
Dexter.
much. Bye-bye. Have a
Well,
good rest of
bye-bye.
the day. Lovely weekend. God bless.
You too. Bye-bye.
A charming
There you go.
fellow. Lovely man.
I know, it's almost like we didn't realise he was going to be so nice.
Well, I never assume everyone's going to be nice. It was absolutely lovely.
He's Dexter Moscow. Of course he's nice. We know he is. Anyway.
It's a cool name, though, isn't it? Isn't that a cool name?
It's
Dexter
true,
Moscow.
actually.
It's very cool. Well, it never occurred to you it's a very cool name. Elizabeth
Well,
Green
no, well,
has
I mean,
left
I'm not being
Jamaica.
funny, but I'm not being funny, but I'm called Phil Dave. Why would I focus on anyone else's name when I've got my own?
You're an egomaniac, you know that. Elizabeth Green is back in Elizabeth Green is back in New York City. Well, the girls are so pretty. Yeah, New York in the summer. My God, used to stand when I lived there. I used to stand there and watch the pavements bubble. It was that hot. Literally, the pavements, the tarmac.
Could you imagine just being on the subway in the heat?
Oh, God almighty.
No,
Here's a
thank you very
con.
much.
Here's a con. I had a meeting yesterday, and a fellow I was with, I'm not going to mention his names, came over on tube. And our wonderful mayor is telling us and informing us that the underground is air-conditioned. It's not.
No, it's not.
It's not air-conditioned.
There is one.
It was
There's
like an oven. It was like a turkey at Christmas.
There is one train, one type of train that actually serves 4 lines. That is air conditioned. So the same trains are used on the Met Line, the Circle, District, and Hammersmith City. Okay, those 4 lines have the same train. That train is what's called air cooled. It's not necessarily air conditioned in quite the same way.
Cool. Elizabeth Green is saying, of course, Elizabeth Green is saying the subway in New York is air conditioned, but the tube's an oven. You're absolutely right. I can't.
Yeah.
I just can't.
But all the other lines are horrendously hot.
And how can that be? If see, this is where I get confused. If there's COVID, right, and you're cheek by jowl with someone on a tube train and it's 8 billion degrees centigrade, how can that be healthy? Can't be right, can it?
No, it's
can't
not.
be healthy. And just a little plea, would you mind opening up Shaftesbury Avenue? What a pain in the arse that is. Close Shaftesbury Avenue. How can you close Shaftesbury Avenue, one of the main arteries of London?
Well, you've had a year and a half to close it. So why would you want
you've had a year and a half to do this crap, and you do it now when people are trying to get back on their feet.
Mind you, Shaftesbury Avenue, that is a sad sight at the moment. My goodness me. If you've not been to Shaftesbury Avenue recently and you do plan on going anytime soon, I warn you, you are in for a shock. It is horrendous.
It's a shocker. So's Regent
It's like
Street.
a ghost town.
Shocker.
An absolute ghost town.
Shaftesbury Avenue's had the guts ripped out of it. Awful. Absolutely awful.
The only saving grace is that a lot of Soho and a lot of Chinatown around it has survived. So actually, you do sort of get a little bit of a buzz from it, but the main Shaftesbury Avenue, forget it. There's just hardly anything there.
It's very, very odd. Chinatown, as busy as ever, seems to be thriving, which is great. I love, when we talk Chinatown, we just mean Gerrard Street, basically. It's one. If you don't know what we're talking about, it's one street in London's the middle of London, which is just Chinese restaurants and everything. It's called Chinatown. Has been forever.
Well, it's important to stress it's not just Chinese restaurants, but it celebrates the best of the Orient, basically.
What, Gerrard Street? You've only got Chinese restaurants. What else?
Chinese restaurants, but there's also, I know that there are other types of cuisine as well. There's also, say, Chinese bakeries.
Yeah.
So what I mean is that it's Chinese cuisine, but it's not just to sit in restaurants.
No. It's a whole Chinese vegetable shops, fruit shops, and all the stuff I've never seen before. It's fantastic to look at. You think, what the hell's that? What it tastes like? And it's remarkable to get to this stage in life. You think, I've never even heard of that. Wow, or seen it before. So that's pretty good. Soho, not bad. Several major bumps in the road, but
Yeah, quite literally, they've shut all of those roads off as well.
Jesus Christ. 5 o'clock is stuck. I'm not going to go into it. But Shaftesbury Avenue, which was where all the theatres are and everything, it's horrible. It's very depressing. Very, very sad. Because they're not little shops. These are big double or triple fronted, establishments. Just boarded up. And you think, well, how are they ever going to come back? Who's going to be able to go in there and afford it? Because it was the big chains that pulled their shops. Like, I think Bella Italia and all those sort of things. Just gone. This is interesting. Paul Andrews, the tube wasn't healthy before COVID. You ain't kidding. Now, well, walking for me far nicer. Knowing all the shortcuts helps. It absolutely does. Elizabeth Green, I think, is giving a little insight into her life in New York. She said, yes, but now my visa is stamped till 2023. She had to go to Jamaica. Not quite the same as I have to go to Tesco because I'm running out of semi-skimmed lactose-free milk. Doesn't have the same ring. I'll be honest with you.
No, to be honest, it has a much nicer ring to it.
What? You'd rather go to Tesco than Jamaica?
No, that they have to go to Jamaica.
No, she went of her own accord. Oh my God, I've waited a lifetime for that. Come on, let's build it up again. It's too good to only pass over once. Hey,
You haven't wasted a
Elizabeth
lifetime.
Green.
We did it when we found out she was in Jamaica.
Well, let's do it again. You never get the chance. Hey, Elizabeth, did you have to go to Jamaica? No, she went.
You can see why Gone with the Wind had an interval, can't you?
And Lawrence of Arabia when it came out.
Anyway, right,
There we
sitting
go.
very
Right.
patiently, looking mildly horrified at
I
what lies
bet they
beneath,
are. Jeez.
is our next guest. Now, to anyone who is in need, if anyone was in need of well-being and mental health coach, I think it's us. But she also happens to be, by the way, which is rather exciting,
Yeah.
a broadcaster as well.
Get out of Dodge.
I know. It's almost like she was made for this show. So let us say a very
Well,
warm
We'll
welcome.
be the judge of that, young Dave. We'll be the judge of that, young man.
Yes, you could call me Phil if you'd rather.
No,
Anyway,
no, I was doing
let's-
it deliberately using your surname like we had to at school.
Oh, I see. Oh, right. Sorry.
Pretending
Kane.
your first name was Dave, Rodney.
Did I ever tell you about the time I went up to one of my old games masters and told him that once? Because I went to a school where it wasn't. It was a school where I wasn't sort of familiar with everyone's names, and as a result of
It's
it,
Russell. It's Russell.
I hadn't learned everyone's surnames either. And of course, when they was saying it, because we had quite a diverse background of people, so they had all quite exotic sounding surnames that could have very easily have been first names for all I knew. And as he was sort of calling them all then by the surnames, I didn't realise this. And then he went to me and then he called me Dave. And I went up to him afterwards. I said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, I don't want to sort of, put you in an awkward position. But actually, the first name is Philip. Well, at the time, it was Philip, not Phil. So my first name is Philip. So I said, "Dave's the surname." And he looked at me with a stern voice and said, "I call everybody by their surname." And I was genuinely trying to be helpful. I wanted to save him his embarrassment, but no, took it really personally. Anyway, someone who we absolutely don't need to call by their surname, we'll give them their full name, is our guest who's waiting very patiently. We say a very good afternoon to Zinat Noorani, who is here now. Zinat, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, good afternoon.
You've got an interesting no, I don't want to see me big, thank you. Now, before we go any further, you got a nice blank background. Are you against that? I'm just curious, because
white
normally we
wall.
get shoved with bookshelves, and it's
no,
nice to see nothing. I'm really bored with
Well, you're not seeing
bookshelves.
nothing, you're seeing me.
Well,
Exactly, you
I'm
see?
talking about the back.
In your
God,
face,
you see
Kane.
now. You see now. I've got off to a terrible start. This is all your fault.
Thank you, Russ and Phil, for having me here. It's lovely to
Well,
be here.
it's my singular pleasure.
And if I
Background
may
corner.
say, by the way, Paul Andrews may think he's insulted me, but actually I take it as a massive compliment. He's just said Phil's turned into Giles Brandreth, an anecdote for all occasions. I
It's
could
marvellous.
only
We
dream.
love Giles. We
I
love
could
Giles.
only
I
dream.
write to Giles every day. I send him a tweet nearly every day because something crops up. Enough about
I mean,
that. We are here to
you
talk
say
about
that though. You say that, but how is that restraining order going?
quite well, actually. It's not too bad. Although I
Anyway.
did breach the one with Nigella Lawson recently, but there we go. It wasn't my fault. Now, tell us a bit about...
frightened now.
Who can possibly blame you, Zina?
been a
Anyway,
long
Had
week.
breakfast and lunch yet.
It's been a long,
not.
long,
No,
it's
no,
been
no,
a
no, I
long
don't like
ass
that.
week. Now, tell us about yourself, Zina.
So, a little bit about me. Wow, I've got a story, but it's, we could be here all night. So,
I'm in no rush. I'm in no rush at all. All I got to look forward to is another diet shake. So, frankly, take your time.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
I've got a
That's
bottle of
fine.
Tattinger waiting for me.
You got to.
oh,
I hate you.
everyone, run to Zinat.
Hang
Sorry.
on, everyone. What time do you want us round? Do you live local?
No, I'm
Shall I bring
actually
some
off to-
Pringles?
I have to come to Winchester.
Fine.
I
Don't
don't
open
mind.
it yet. We can be there
I
in
don't
no
mind.
time. I don't even know where it is, but I'll be there. We'll jump in the car.
I don't know where Winchester is. What's wrong with you? How rude.
Because I don't. It's not London. I don't know where anything is. Now look, Zina. Just before you get into your story, you got enough Pringles?
I don't eat Pringles.
Oh, good. More for Phil and me. Do you? What do you like? You like honey roasted peanuts or what? What? No, I want to get it right. I don't want to arrive empty-handed when we're offered Tattinger's champagne. It would be rude. She hardly knows us, Phil. I'm trying to build
Yes,
a
and
bridge
for
here.
this, I'm sure she's eternally grateful. Anyway, Zina, you are
Precisely.
here
I
to talk
am,
most
yeah.
importantly about well-being and being also a mental health coach. Now, obviously, this is quite a broad subject
It is.
because I'm always fascinated when someone describes themselves as a mental health coach, and we've had several people obviously on the show who do that. But it means something different every time. So, to you, what is someone who is a mental health coach? What is it that you do, and help others in? What's your speciality?
So my speciality is the mind. So it's mindset with self-awareness and resilience. But it's really about digging deep into who you are, your self-worth and your self-value, and what your beliefs are. Because until you establish who you really are and where your belief systems lie, it's really difficult to make shifts. So that's where I specialize in, is really getting down to the nitty-gritty, the parts that a lot of us like to avoid and not go down. And
well, I was just going to say, actually, I don't even think it's us as individuals like to avoid. I believe it's also professionals as well, to some degree, like to avoid. No, seriously, because actually, if you can, I think many people would be forgiven for thinking that if there is a quick fix, they'll take it. But I believe it's really interesting. So if you are, as someone who does this sort of work, if you are prepared to dig deep and actually almost not be afraid of what you might unearth, I think that's hugely admirable.
Absolutely. And it's not an easy journey, as we know, and if it was easy, we'd all be doing it. But it's so rewarding when you actually truly get that aha moment of who you actually are, and that the path that you may have been on is actually not the path that you wanted to be on. And it's been set by your environment, the people that you've been surrounded by, because our belief systems are built from the day we're born and we come into this world. Let
me start to drill down a bit, because these no, not at all. It's not my job. I'm really curious. Let's start with finding out who you are. What does that actually mean?
So who you are is about knowing what makes you tick and what doesn't make you tick. And it's about knowing your worth, how much you actually value yourself. And that's what it is. A lot of us lack confidence in many areas. And the reason being is because we really don't know who we are and what we want in life.
So does that mean when you... I want to be clear about this. When you say what we're worth, do you mean what we think we're worth in the world or to other people, or what we're... How do you mean?
Ourself. It always starts with ourselves. It doesn't really matter what people think of us, because fundamentally we need to be happy with ourselves, which will then allow us to move forward. Because therefore you'll then attract the positivity, the positive energy, the people that want to be around you for the right reason.
I agree with that.
Reason.
Totally agree with that. Finding out who you are and what you're not, how do you even begin that process? Because it's fundamental to everything, isn't it? It's the key.
It is, yeah. So first of all, with my clients, it's really important that they're ready to open up pathways that they've been hiding from for a very long time. So they're coming out of their comfort zone. So that's where we have to start, by building that relationship with the person. So with my clients, I build a relationship. I said, well, this is how it's going to be. You need to be open, you need to be honest, and ready to shed some tears if need be, and scream and yell and laugh. It has to be all of those things, and not shy away from what's really going to come in front of them. And then it's through questioning that allows them to rethink, because fundamentally, I think we all have the answers within us, but unfortunately, we kind of put it back to our sort of subconscious, and we kind of put it into a filing cabinet, and it just collects dust until something happens in our life, and then those are triggered by those experiences, and then they suddenly come to our forefront, and that's why we react the way we react, because we haven't dealt and know, who we should be and how we should have been dealt with those problems in the past.
But is there any truth in being able to bury it does sometimes actually help us to overcome something, or is it always going to be there? I think it's obviously it's hard to sort of say that in generically speaking without actually giving a specific example. But let's just say hypothetically that someone has never properly dealt with the loss of a loved one, just for example. If one does bury it by just pretending it didn't happen, or just carrying on and just, I don't know whether or not they are pretending, say, for example, that maybe the person's moved away, that they're in total denial that that person's no longer around anymore. Is it always going to be at the back of one's mind, or is it possible to bury it deep enough that it won't affect us after a certain amount of time?
Well, our brains are amazing It's an amazing organ, and it can be so far that it may never come up, or it could be that something along the line can trigger it and it can come up. But we don't know to what intensity that would affect the there and now, if that makes sense. So yes, some things are best left in the past. We don't, I don't dig deep in the past unless I can see it's causing an issue. Now, if something doesn't bother you, then why dig out the past if you can still move forward successfully and happy? But if something's stopping you, and it could be the past, then that's where it needs to be addressed. But like you
it's
said,
interesting.
The
American model, Zena, is that, geez, something probably happened to you in your childhood, and they take you back, and it's like, oh, Christ, move on. You're not 6. You're not 5. I'm sorry you lost your bicycle, but you can't let it define you for the rest of your life. You're an adult now. You've got to deal with some of this stuff. Losing a parent is an entirely different thing. But the Americans take you... I used to live over there. One of my friends and colleagues were going under this deep psychoanalysis, and they'd completely dismantled this person. And I thought, oh my God, you've taken someone, you've absolutely dismantled them. And sometimes then the therapist would go away on holiday and vacation, and this person would just be an absolute wreck. And I thought, that's not for me. I don't want that. Thank you very much.
There's a difference. So, I call myself a coach. Because we don't, so you've got counsellors, you've got therapists, you've got coaches, so they all do slightly different. Therapists and counsellors and psychologists tend to dig in the past quite a lot, whereas I don't dig as much in the past, but what it is, it's about your past beliefs that I address.
Get that. I get that.
Unless it's something very, very traumatic, but then a lot of times we don't need to actually know the ins and outs of it, because we can address them through so many other techniques, like hypnosis, for example, that can deal with trauma, EFT, NLP techniques.
Hang on, so whoa, EFT.
Emotional freedom tapping.
That was a prod rock game. Was that? Say it again?
Emotional freedom tapping.
Oh, this? Well, that
yes.
business.
So it's basically acupuncture without the needles. Though
well, we've had people. We did that on Phil with his fear of wasps.
Strange. Yeah,
we did it. We had a guest in the studio.
You say that.
When we had guests in the studio, when we had a studio before pre-COVID, and Phil's fear was wasps, and so the person who was doing this EFT, as you call it, said, well, "Let's try it." And blooming heck, live on radio and TV, it worked.
No, and honestly,
it was extraordinary.
I was super cynical. I promise you, I'm honestly not completely averse to alternative therapies by any stretch of the imagination. But you cannot tell me that by tapping my face, I'm suddenly going to overcome a fear of wasps. And I can't believe it now. Honest to God, after just doing it that one time, okay, I don't like the little so-and-sos.
Little swines.
I certainly don't flinch in the way I used to.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Bizarre.
I've no idea how it works, but it works.
No, I don't know either. And actually,
Phil was like 3 feet away from me, and I'm watching this thing. I'm thinking, this is bullshit.
No, I know, but I really got really angry about it, because I actually said, "What have you?" I even remember my exact words. I just said, "Oh my God, what have you done to me?" Because I really didn't know, because I thought it was magic or something, because I just really couldn't understand how by following instructions instead of just doing this malarkey all over the place, that this helped. So. And
the other thing, Phil, it was so bloody quick. It was Zena. This was like, this was so quick, and I'm sitting there going, "This is going to be hilarious," and it wasn't.
No, I sat there and I thought, do you know what I was doing? I tell you what I was doing. I was sitting there wondering how I could rehearse faking it as if yes, it had been successful, because I didn't want to make our guest look stupid. That's all that was going through my mind.
You've learned so much from your girlfriends in the past, haven't you, Phil?
Thank you very much. I'm worried about. I didn't want them to make them look stupid. So as a result, I was really consciously aware of that. And actually, there was no faking at all.
But you know what? The great thing about tapping, anybody can do it, even young children, and you can do it so that people don't even actually know that you're doing it. That's the great thing about it.
Well, I tell you, hold your horses.
My horses.
Right. This is
don't mind him. He's very strange.
This is someone who's coming on. They're going to have their own show, because I was so blooming impressed, and we've discussed
the
that.
band.
It's called Cuddy Cudsworth. Now this is
the
a
elastic
thing.
band.
Yeah. Now,
Yes.
so he says on the show, right, I'm going to send you and Phil some bands. What's this thing about the bands?
Fantastic.
And he said, well, you know this. You know it, Zena. And I'm the most cynic. I mean, Phil and I are two cynics. And I think you have to be, because a cynic is what a romantic calls a realist, right? And Cuddy Cudsworth, as I said, he's going to have his own show because he was just terrific. And he said, you put this elastic band. Well, this is made. And when you're having this negative thoughts, you feel yourself, you just go like that. And I thought, well, that's rubbish. It works.
Yeah.
Because it's a little physical sort of nudge to
Impulse
say,
of it, yeah.
stop. What would you call it technically? What is it? What's the technical term for that? Because it's
There
just a
is no
little.
technical-
What are you
It's
doing?
just a nudge for an emotional jerk,
Yes,
a response.
You're just
to
going.
your symptoms.
No, I'm having these stupid thoughts that are based on nothing. It's all shit. Forget it. And this says, right, let's just refocus on what's actually happening in front of us. What's important, not this negative nonsense, which is serving no purpose whatsoever. Extraordinary.
It's a shock
A
response.
little silly elastic band.
See, now I was just thinking
Incredible.
how
It is amazing, isn't it?
most
Great.
people,
It's great.
most people who are professionals have their clients go to them based on full faith that what that individual is going to do for them will work a treat. And yet alternative therapies still are faced with such cynicism. How do you deal with not only trying to help treat a patient, but actually the cynicism that you receive as well from that patient occasionally? And one would assume if they're really that much of a cynic, they possibly wouldn't come to you in the first place. But they'd be a little skeptical, should we say? You know, they go to you and they'd say, well, I'm not convinced that this is going to do the job. So how do you overcome that, if at all?
Well, first of all, I always say, because I use a lot of techniques and strategies, I always say, we're all unique, we're all, different, and we all respond differently to different techniques and strategies. Some may work better for others, some may not. It's a bit like acupuncture. If you've ever done acupuncture, for some people it works wonders. It works wonders on me, but for other people, it does
I went to
nothing.
sleep because people have said every time my back flares up following a car crash, they go, "Oh, acupuncture." I said, "Well, I've done acupuncture. All that happens is I fall fast asleep, don't feel any better at all. It just knocks me clean out. Don't feel any better.
So
Didn't hurt.
It's the
Found
same
it
thing.
fine, but nothing.
Strange, isn't
I
it?
wish it had worked. Believe me, Zena, I wish to God it had worked. I didn't go there going, this isn't going to work and I'm going to make sure it doesn't work. No, I really wanted it to work.
Well, maybe you needed some sleep and you got your sleep in, Maybe
Oh, I sleep in a
deprived.
dentist. Joking aside, I have fallen asleep in the dentist chair. I can sleep. Boom. That's meditation for you. I just meditate out and I'm gone. It's extraordinary. Yeah,
I'll
It was
have to-
actually it was actually the dentist told him how much the treatment was going to cost. He passed out.
I just fainted. Bloody fainted.
They are very expensive.
Well,
they are, but
I don't need them myself. Yes. Right. It is interesting because I think with some things, Zena, and I'd love your opinion on this. You can go in and go, impress me, or that sort of attitude. You've got to go in with at least an open mind.
Yes.
But some things, like when they did the tapping thing on Phil, even if you think it's utter pants, and suddenly they just work. I didn't know what the hell. Boom!
It's 'cause
It
people
just
don't want to look silly.
worked.
I mean, it does look silly when you're doing this. And you're
What
tapping
are you
away.
doing? What are you doing? What's the
you
last
you
bit?
can tap here. There's a tapping point there as well.
What,
under
on
the
your,
arm.
where are you tapping? Your hips? I can't see.
No, so
Not
when
being
it's
rude. I
the-
mean, I can't see because your
the
hands are
brass
going out of
strap.
shot.
So when it's the brass strap, just on the side.
I'm not wearing one
underneath.
today. I'm going crazy.
Oh.
I'm letting it all hang out. So shut up, Phil. So where you? All right.
I
So
can
this is
only
for ladies.
apologise, Zena. I'm so sorry.
She's over 21, for God's sake.
Oh.
She brought up the word bra. I didn't bring it up. She's a sauce boat from
Zena's very
Worcester.
kindly trying to offer us an explanation to your
I'm
oh so
listening. I'm
fascinating
listening. I
question.
can't help.
And you're laughing at bra straps. What's wrong with you? Anyway,
Because I'm 12. Right.
Oh.
Okay. So
Anyway.
here. Right. Okay. I've got it. Then what do you do?
So that's just another pressure point where you can do the EFT. But I mean, you're not going to be doing that in public. So I mean, there's lots of
not unless you're in a production of the Jungle Book, which is ridiculous.
There you go. So I mean, there's lots of
ridiculous
places
on the
you can do
tube.
it.
I mean, it'd be embarrassing. Okay, I get that. Are there any?
So,
What happens is, here's this, and this is an important thing, because you're a coach, and I think that's an excellent term, because you're there to facilitate, to help, and I
Absolutely.
totally go along with that. And who doesn't need help? We all need some help. But I think one of the most destructive things is the negative thoughts that we have. I think that's a really... Do people come to you and go, Zeenat, you got to help me, I'm full of negativity, and does that happen, or is that
absolutely.
just me?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The
What
voices
happens?
inside your head. Yes.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
voice is... No one else is beating you up. You're beating yourself up.
You're
You go,
beating yourself up.
why?
Absolutely.
Why? Why are you
And you
doing
know what? Is it Cuddy that said?
Yeah,
about
Cuddy
the
Cudsworth. Yeah, Cuddy.
Cuddy Cudsworth
yeah.
about the monkey brain.
Yeah,
That's
what is it?
absolutely
It's
true.
monkey mind relaxation.
Monkey mind. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely spot on. We have these, and it's not about ignoring them. It's about taking control of those thoughts and not letting the thoughts control you. And importantly, and I think he mentioned it as well, it's about looking for the evidence in those thoughts. And that's where self-awareness comes. And it's
tell.
stepping back.
Yeah, all right. Let's explore. I love that. Never thought of that. So, all right, we'll use me as an example because we spare the blushes of our viewers and listeners, right? So I beat myself up about certain things in my past, right? Stupid decisions I made. The evidence is there because it nearly destroyed me. So there's the evidence. What do I do? How do I process that?
So
I'm using me just as an example. I'm not asking you to analyse
No.
me.
So
God,
what you would...
God forbid. Don't do that.
I'm not going to analyse
We'll
you.
be here for 27 hours. Be a disaster.
Don't worry, I'll invoice you later.
Thank you. No, there isn't enough money in the world to get me through that. But all right, so you've got the evidence. You've done something stupid.
Yeah.
It's a tangible thing. So there's your evidence. How do you walk around it?
So I would very briefly, because as you said, we haven't got a lot of time, but
No. Carry on. We're fine.
Is look at the choice that you made, the reason behind the choice that you made, and then when you see the outcome, look at also the positives that come out of it, because out of everything that we do, say, and make a decision on, there's always a positive to it. You've always also learned something from
I've learned something, but and I'm not being facetious here. I'm seriously not. It's not how I played the game on the show. I absolutely learned something. A horrible, ghastly lesson. I might as well just hold a live pylon in the middle of a field. That's how bad the lesson was. But nothing positive came out of it at all. Nothing.
So the positive thing would, you would probably have to dig deeper into the positive thing is you learned something actually. That's the first thing.
I learned. Yeah.
So that's
totally
positive.
Totally.
Because otherwise you wouldn't have learned that lesson. So that stopped you, or possibly from making that same mistake or that same decision that you made. So it will help you move forward with your next steps. And that's the main thing about looking at evidence to see, okay, what's true, what's not true. Is it something that appears all the time? Are there triggers to these thoughts as well? So there's two things we talk about.
I feel bad about it. I feel bad that I was... it's really simple. I don't normally put myself forward, but I don't want to use other people as an example. That wouldn't be right. I feel bad that I was so stupid. It seemed right at the time. It was a business decision, by the way. It wasn't a personal thing. It was a business thing. That was horrendous, and I beat myself up about it.
Yeah.
There you go. I've said it.
We all beat ourselves up about it. Something that we make a decision on and that we're not happy with. But it's about stepping back and said, like I said before, if you didn't make that decision and if it hadn't happened, then you wouldn't have learned something from it. Now you.
But I would have retired.
Think about.
But I would have retired very comfortably. Kimmy Lashmar says, does Zeenat have a website, etc.? Do you see? You're resonating with our folks out there.
I do. It's zeenatnarani.com.
Well, that's simple enough. Zeenat, and all your info is on that site? And
all my information is on that site, absolutely.
I tell you what's nice about you. If I may say this, it sounds horribly patronising. I don't mean it, but some people come on and say, "This is what I do for a living." You think, I'm not feeling. I'll be honest. I'm not feeling that. I would not want to speak. I wouldn't want to speak to this person about personal stuff. But you seem very sympathetic, in the absolute proper meaning of the term sympathetic. Person, I can see why you're good at what you do. Elizabeth Green over in New York City, international show, Zena, says she has a practice every morning. She has to say, "All's well." That's great.
That's awesome. Absolutely awesome. And do you know what?
I like
By
that.
saying those positive affirmations is absolutely amazing. And
Yeah, isn't it just?
And I'm not to publicise it or anything, but I have at my book here, beginning
No, publicise it. Why wouldn't you do that, for God's sake? It's not the BBC. Plug the arse out of it. Go ahead. Off you go.
It's fine, Zena. It's the same way that I'll be appearing on Talk Radio tomorrow morning from 5 a.m. till 7 a.m. But
Yeah, but no one's going to read that. This is a proper
seriously.
book. This is something that people are actually
Zena-
interested in, Phil.
Zena, hold it
Bring
up
the book
again. Sorry,
cover
let's
up.
see. Let's see
the
the
cover.
book.
Come on.
So there you
It
go.
says, begin
each day.
Oh my God!
With
I didn't know.
affirmations and empowering questions. Love it.
Okay.
So what I've done here, it's just a book with a whole load of affirmations and empowering questions that I have
bloody love
used
that.
on my journey. And I thought, why should I keep it to myself? If they've helped me move forward, I would love to share that with the world and let other people, because sometimes I feel a bit silly coming up with affirmations. So it's just to kind of ignite and boost people's mind to kind of just think about that. And something really silly that I do, which is not silly because I love it and it empowers me, is across my mirror, I've taken my lipstick, and you can borrow your partner's lipstick, or, whatever it is.
Well, Phil's got his own. It's all right.
He's got his own. That's okay.
Yeah.
Red, pink, whatever colour you like. And I've written across
Cerise.
my mirror, I've written, I am enough.
I am enough.
I am enough, and it's a
Really?
confidence thing. So showing that I have the confidence, I'm enough in my self-belief and everything I am, and I see that every morning, every time I walk into my room, and it's so empowering. So you can write things, and I've got post-it notes everywhere as well.
You see, I'm going to give you a little
I'm all
tip.
for affirmation. I'm all for affirmation, but I'm not going to lie. If I even thought about drawing on any mirror of mine, all I'd want to do is clean it off. I'm that much of a neat freak.
He's a neat freak.
I'm
Now,
so
I
sorry.
have an affirmation. Now, Zena,
I can
I have an
post it,
affirmation.
that's right.
I have an affirmation which has worked for me. I wake up every morning and go, I'm not Phil Dave. And I get through my day.
Charming.
It really, really works. Now, here's something, Zena, that is, I love all this. Ramsey Y. Masalam, who's an absolute regular, has said, where's it gone? Zena looks just like my ex-wife. Very unsettling. So were you at any point, Zinat Noorani, married to somebody called Ramsey Y. Masalam? In which case, we really want to know, why didn't it work out?
Unfortunately, that's another story for another time.
Oh,
Well, quite.
Yeah, well, okay. Now, interestingly, here's something that is really actually helped me from... hang on a minute, I've lost it now. Blast, it's got so many...
Zena,
being very
be
popular,
honest
so
with me,
the
have you
messages
done a
are
radio
flying.
show like this before in your life?
No, I haven't.
There we
But it's
go. No, there's...
it's nice to be unique.
Are you?
Well,
No, all right, let me ask you this, because I know we
My show's
we
very
are
different.
different. Are you enjoying it, or are you finding it
I'm
ghastly?
loving it. It's very
There
different
you
from my
go, right,
shows.
there we
There
go.
we go.
Dave Sleet says, who runs APA, decisions are made. This is so true, and thank you. This has helped me, Dave. Decisions are made at a moment in time based on the knowledge available at that time.
Absolutely.
Totally right.
If you don't have the
That's true.
information, how can you make a decision?
No, I know. And they call it in America Monday morning quarterbacking. Everyone's a genius Monday morning. I'd have played this, I'd have done that, I'd have, gone on this side, I'd have punted the ball there. You can be a genius after the event, on the event. And Veronica Curran up in Edinburgh, so we've gone from New York to, I'm not sure what David, back to Edinburgh now. Fright or flight has stopped us learning many beneficial lessons.
Yeah. Still, some of us, or many of us, still live as if we're cavemen and cavewomen.
Yeah.
And we allow that to get in our way. a lot of the time.
It's true, actually. When I once invited Russ to come clubbing, he whacked me over the head with a large stick.
I'm loving my Friday afternoon.
It's very kind of you to
I'm
like
glad
that.
one of us is Zenat. Veronica Current says, definitely Zenat, we are always happy to be critical, but hesitate with positivity. That is true. That is true. But then when you see people who... there were two examples recently, Zenat. Let me run this by you. Of Branson and Bezos going into space in their different ego trips. And I sat there, I kind of been the only person going, no, I can't even tell you what I said. But anyway, to myself, it didn't resonate with me because it just like, there's like feeling confident and then there's like, oh, shut up. You're just so full of yourself. I'm not saying it's not a great achievement, but it wasn't them that achieved it. It was all the hundreds and hundreds of scientists and engineers who did it. They just didn't. There's some things there's too much confidence, though, isn't there? Or not?
They can be, but a lot of times when there's too much confidence, it's because many may be covering up the lack that they're actually not so confident in that area. And it goes to their upbringing and what they believe. But confidence is a massive topic. It's like an umbrella with lots of the different spokes on them, and it covers a range of areas. I mean, my career as before I became a coach, I was a primary teacher, and before that, I was a professional figure skater. So confidence was.
Wow.
Yeah, were you? Wow. So was Phil. Did you ever meet him on the circuit?
No, he wasn't.
Of course he bloody wasn't. Were you really an international figure skater? That's fantastic.
So yes, I loved it, and that was my passion. But it had its ups and downs as well, believe me.
Yeah, literally. Were you any good? Were you good?
Absolutely, I was fantastic. There's my confidence.
Fair enough. I was a genius. Oh wow.
Can I just say, okay,
That's
you jest, but in my defense, ice skating is actually one of the few things I can do. Thank
Are
you
you
very
kidding
much.
me?
I love
I'm just
it.
jealous. Zenat, when I was 15, I had a date. Right, I was 15. I had a date with someone I really fancied.
Disco on
15
ice.
years and on ice. And she said, "Let's meet at the ice rink." Well, I'm an idiot, so I thought that's what she wants to do. I couldn't get from the dressing room where you put your skates onto the rink. I've never put skates on ever since. I can't even look at an ice rink. I look at it on TV. I've never forgotten the humiliation.
Yeah.
There we go.
So you look like Bambi then.
He took one look and he said, "That's not cool." Anyway, Zina, for anyone who wants more information, remind us again your website. Where do they go? What do they do? How do they get information and find you?
So where can they find me? They can find me anywhere on social media. My name's not that common. So it'll be zinatnarani.com, the website. LinkedIn's the same, Zinat Narani.
Oh, good.
On Instagram, which is Narani Zinat. But also, if they put in...
Oh, I see what you did there. You're teasing us with that, just in case. You didn't want to make it too
Dave Phil.
easy.
It's like Dave Phil.
Didn't want to make it too easy.
Tricky. She's
but my
playing hard
company
to get.
name is Vida de la Mariposa, which means life of a butterfly. And it's about the transformation.
Do that slowly again. I loved it, but I didn't catch
Vida
it.
de la Mariposa, weren't you listening?
Vida de la Mariposa, eso.
I had that. I got shocking indigestion, and I thought the sauce on the side was too much.
But
I suggest that for anyone who is listening, by the way, who doesn't necessarily see the visuals and can't see Zinat's name written up, I just want to make 100% sure that they are also able to find you. And Zinat spells her name Z-E-E-N-A-T, and then Narani is N-O-O-R-A-N-I.
And could you just hold up your book seriously? Because people are saying, "Oh, what's the book? What's the book? We want to see it." And I know people. And Veronica Curran in Edinburgh totally wants to get it. It is called. There we go. Begin each day with affirmations and empowering questions. And Zina, is that on Amazon?
it is,
Oh,
yes.
all right, that's good. That's good. All right.
Do you know what? I also wanted to just mention coming up on the 7th of August is the Priory Live Festival in Orpington. So if anyone's around there wants to travel down, it's an amazing event that's been organised by Nikki Barclay, who was in the music industry, and it's for musicians and the creative artists that have been struggling with mental health. And
Oh, this is
all
really,
musicians.
really important. I tell you what.
So I'll just show you the.
No. I tell you what I'd like you to do. Are you available Monday?
Monday. Yep. Sorry, I'm not disappearing. Here I
I
am.
really want you to. What are you doing there for a minute? It was a magic trick. This is really important because we've got so many listeners who are musicians. If you could, not to talk about your mental health coaching, could you pop back on Monday just to talk about this thing, even briefly, like 5-10
Absolutely.
minutes?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's really something very central to what we're trying to do. And so many of our musician pals and entertainment pals have been absolutely destroyed by this pandemic. If you could come back, Phil, you've got all the details. If you could come back Monday, just pop in for like 10 minutes and talk about this thing. And if you've got someone who's organising it, if you could reach out to them, I would love to spend just 10 minutes. I don't want to give you a rush now. It's not right.
Yeah.
Too important. If you
No,
could
absolutely.
get hold of the
It's
organisers
massive. I will.
and just come back on Monday when Phil and I are back, God willing, and chat about this just for 10 minutes. Literally just pop
10
in.
minutes. Can I just show you the flyer? So that's the
Yeah,
flyer.
of
You'll
course.
see it around. They're going to have bands like Top Loader.
I love Top Loader.
Paul Daunton, the orchestra, Anabolic Steroids. It's going to be amazing. And I'm going to be interviewing them as well about the mental health side of things in the pandemic, as well as presenting them on stage. So it's going to be a great event. So I'll definitely come back on Monday.
Right, come back Monday and chit chat with us. And if you can bring the organizer back, that would be I'd love to.
I will.
I'd like
Maybe
to
I'll bring
discuss
him
it. It's
with me. Yeah.
something very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
wonderful.
Zina. It was great to meet
Zina,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank you
It's
so
been lovely.
much,
Really
Russ and
enjoyed
Phil.
it.
It's been amazing. Take care.
It's
been.
Speak soon.
It's been.
Bye. There we go. We like Zina. She can come back,
Look,
definitely.
Absolutely charming. Absolutely charming. Veronica Carmen says, I can skate. Yes, but knees, arthritis, and it's probably not right. This is
Osteoporosis.
Thank you very much. What? Oh, I see. State that Veronica and traction would be the outcome. Crap.
Anyhow.
I'm presuming,
just
Kimmy, that it is Orpington in Kent. Yeah.
Hopefully. We'll see. But anyway, I suggest we end this show in traditional fashion now. Because here's Chantal.
What? Where is she now? No,
She's
she's not in Dubai.
She's
Not in Colorado.
Good Lord,
not in
she's in
Los
Wales.
Angeles. Not in New York. She's in Wales.
I'm in Wales.
Like
and I can
Jonah.
give you a
Are the tax
blow-
people after you or something? I've never known anybody shift around so much in my life. It's
I can give you a
fantastic.
blow-by-blow account of every single traffic cone on the M6. So
Oh
if
God,
anybody
is it horrible?
interested-
Is it completely awful?
Well, it got a bit messy around there, but no, we left London very early doors for our annual summer holiday up in Wales.
Gosh, that's come round again.
Oh, it's come round again already. Here
No,
we are
seriously,
again.
I'm not being facetious. It's like, wow, it felt in my head, it feels like, 'cause I remember the last time, it feels like maybe 4 months ago. There we are, it's 12 months.
Well,
Wow.
no, we did sneak up when lockdown was sort of lifted temporarily and just after Easter. So we came
That's
up at
right.
Easter.
There we
But
go.
Chantal, that's what we love about you. You're in Wales more than Jonah. Good work.
Oh, very good.
You've been working on that. You've been working on
Well,
that?
I sort
Sounding
of
Stardust?
I sort of alluded it to before, but you were talking over me, so no one could hear it. So I thought I'd give it another run, just in case.
I was giving the listeners a break. Thank you so much for joining us.
Lovely
don't
to
have-
be here.
We don't have the mute. What's the weather like in Wales? Because it's been crazy in London, as you well know.
Indeed, I didn't have much sleep in London during the last week because it's been too hot. But it's incredibly hot here. It's about 25, I think, today, 27. So it's pretty boiling. So I rushed
I
down to
don't
the beach.
understand. Seriously, I don't understand why people are unhappy about the hot weather. First of all, you've just come back from Dubai. Excuse me.
Yeah, well, yeah.
This is like
you say.
winter.
Yeah, I'm not complaining about the hot weather. I love it.
It's British. If it's raining, if it's cold, if it's hot, doesn't matter. We complain. Doesn't matter what the hell it is. Paul Andrews straight in with a thank you to you, Chantal. Happy Friday, Chantal. Thanks for the last flight. Loved it. Reminded me of The Dissident.
Hang on just a second. If we're going to do this, then we might as well do it properly.
Go on.
And I can quietly, confidently say that
celebrating now. Look, I'm
the
celebrating.
person in the next door meeting room from me is probably having kittens, wondering what on earth is going on in this room. But anyway, let's not dwell on that.
Tell
too
Rebecca
much.
to be quiet, and she's lucky to have you. That's the way I look at it.
One of
it's
these
lovely
days
to be
I
here,
am
guys.
so going to get fired, but anyway. And it won't even be my fault. Anyway.
You're very giddy today, you two. Clearly.
I don't know what
Excuse
it
me,
is.
he's high on CBD oil. It's not my fault.
I'm off my face on CBD oil. It's fine. Anyway, moving on. Now,
I could tell you a very quick story about the last time I went to the Oscars. If only just for a little bit of added.
no, we love stories like this. Absolutely, we love them. You know we do.
And if
this
you
is
don't
not a
mind me saying, I love the way you very casually say the last time I went to the Oscars.
The last time I was, excuse me, the best thing, Chantal, I've known Chantal for years, the best thing she ever said, we're having, I don't know, we're having a drink or something. She said, anyway, so Al Pacino walked, sorry, what? And she said to me, yeah, Al Pacino came into my office. I said, what do you mean, Al? Like, not Al Pacino, the plumber who'd come to fix your air conditioning in Hollywood. Well, Al Pacino, the actor, goes, yeah. What was he doing there? Oh, just hanging.
I mean, it took me many years. It actually took me many years to know that he was indeed an actor and not a coffee. But anyway, right.
That was to my. I've never got over when Chantal just dropped that in the conversation. I was like,
well, the purpose of just picking up on your conversation, and there is the sort of direct link to a silly story about the Oscars. But the last time I went to the Oscars, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I put on excruciatingly high heels, which fortunately I just simply don't have to do.
You used to post pictures of them, didn't you?
I used to post pictures of mine. They were literally like sort of pieces of torture. And anyway, so I staggered down the red carpet, got to the other end, and that whole process takes about 20 minutes or something. And I got to the end, and my feet were in agony as I got to the end. And I turned around and I said to another woman, "Oh, my feet are killing me." And she said, "Well, didn't you get some of the spray?" And I said, "What spray?" And she said, "Didn't you get some of the spray? It'll really help." And I said, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about." She said, "Didn't you get some of the cannabis spray?" Because they're now handing it out at the top of the carpet so that women don't have to feel their feet in their horrible high heels anymore. Because the cannabis spray, it literally takes all the pain away. And I thought, my God, now I've seen everything. This is crazy.
You know, you just thought you were even more annoyed that you had to walk back the other end of the red carpet to get it.
Then they just hand you a tin of Dr. Scholl's. You go, no, that's not what I want. Can I just ask you about I'm sorry, I know that's not why you're here. There's so many people coming in thanking you for your various suggestions, which is great. The goodie bag used to be back in the day. What was the goodie bag worth? It was somebody told me a figure once. I think it was you, and I nearly fainted.
Yes, the one at the Oscars, I think it's at the governor's ball or the governor's party, that the talent get used to be worth around $15,000, I think. The one at the Golden Globes was worth about $750, but they've all scaled them back because this was deemed to be inappropriate.
Bribery, isn't it? It's bribery, isn't it, really?
Yeah. So most of those things don't really exist any longer. There's a very, very strict set of rules that if you're promoting a film in awards season, there are only certain parties that you can give that has a certain allowance of money behind it, or a certain layer of lavishness that you mustn't exceed.
Yeah.
So if you give a party with champagne and lobster, that is deemed to be overly promotional and you can get stopped because it's deemed to be bribery and the film could be stopped at that stage. So actually all of those little cocktail parties are very meager little cocktail parties these days. They're terribly nice. You know, you get a few bits of cheese and a decent glass of wine, but they're nothing like the old lavish days.
It's fascinating, isn't it? For your consideration.
Let's
whack through some of these things because people are thanking you left, right and centre. Hi, Chantal. I've been this is from Ramsey, who's freaking because our last guest looked just like his ex-wife, so he's trying to recover from that.
I heard that. Hi, Ramsey. That must have been very disturbing.
It freaks you out, doesn't it? Hi, Chantal. I've been binge watching LA's Finest. Good entertainment. It's like a female version of Lethal Weapon. P.S. When are you getting Phil and Russ on Celebrity Gogglebox? We're full on the first hurdle because it's got the word celebrity. Gogglebox. They could replace Brandreth and Lip.
Actually, Russ, you'd be very good on Celebrity Gogglebox.
Well, you know everybody in the world. I'm willing to give it a go. Paul Andrews jumping in.
Do you note, Russ? You'd be very good on Celebrity Gogglebox. It's fine. Don't worry.
I think you'd be marvellous too.
You've got your own. You're an international broadcaster on huge stations. You don't bother with little tiny shows like Gogglebox. I'd be grateful for the crumbs off your table. Paul Andrews, I can recommend Heist on Netflix, a fun documentary series, 3 stories of a free... Now, I've got to tell you something weird about this, Paul Andrews and Chantal. We both know Cara Noble, do we not?
We do. Yeah.
I saw Cara the other day. She's in Europe at the moment. So I don't know where she is at the moment. And her son, the lovely Nicholas Frew, who I've known since a little baby, he's one of the production team on Heist. It's part of his company. They put together Heist.
Good for him.
Yeah, it really is. And it was all done in lockdown. The whole series, all of it done in lockdown.
Gosh. Yeah, difficult. Yeah. Well done then.
Oh, and Kimmy Lashmar, love... you don't get this on the film review on BBC Radio 4, do you? Love Chantal's hair colour, by the way. Not a word about us.
Well, you two look as though you had hair this week.
We look like what?
Down to your house.
No, I tell you, in all seriousness, this is not a joke. Since January 2020, I've been cutting my own hair. And this is me. I just cut my own hair. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
And luckily it doesn't show.
No, I know. I look like I just fell into a fly mow. I went to B&Q and tripped up.
I thought it was looking rather good, rather fetching, Mr. Kane.
Thank you. You're very sweet and very kind, and I will take that compliment because why not? Oh, here we go. Paul Claridge is back. This week I've been binge watching again dear God, 9 series. I don't know anything about it, called Still Game on the BBC iPlayer.
Wow.
What is that? Do you know it?
Game?
Never heard of it.
I don't know of it.
Never heard about it, Paul. What's it about?
One would assume that it's meant to be still game. In other words, so you still got it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the show.
Never heard of it.
I will check it out, but I don't know it.
Can I just say, Paul Andrews, you've hit the nail on the head with this one. And another late to the party recommendation from me, Summer of Rockets, as it's just popped up on Netflix. Summer of Rockets, fantastic. Seriously, if you've not watched that. Good shout, Paul. Good shout.
Right.
Good.
Now we've got through the hair section of this entertainment roundup. Right. What have you got? I can't even speak. What have you got for us?
This is the second series of something called Baptiste, which is on BBC One.
Ooh.
So Baptiste was a character that evolved from a TV series starring Jimmy Nesbitt called The Missing, which was a rather sort of sad and sorry tale about a missing child in northern France. And the copper, the supposedly French copper, is a terrific actor who has now got his own series called Baptiste. And this is series number 2, the opposite number, if you like. The protagonist in this particular series is Fiona Shaw, who we know from Killing Eve, who's a fantastic British actress. Okay. And she plays the British ambassador. And right at the very beginning, you see her getting up in the morning, and then there's a moment where she has an argument with her husband, and her 2 sons are there, and they're staying at a big hotel somewhere in Hungary. And then the following morning, she wakes up, and the husband and the 2 sons have disappeared. So Baptiste somehow gets involved in it. It's a little bit tenuous, I would say.
So he's a sorry to jump in. So Baptiste is a policeman. Have I got this right?
He is a policeman, and he basically he's now got this sort of brief to march around Europe, working supposedly for Interpol to find the missing.
That whole ruse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all a bit implausible. Having said that, he's a brilliant character, and I love the way that he plays it. And I think the story is going to be interesting. I've only seen episode 1, but clearly there's a cliffhanger at the end of episode 1.
Now your hair, the Nicky Clark of Edinburgh, the Nicky Clark of Kimmy Lashmar says, I liked Baptiste, but didn't love it. Weirdly, before you'd even said that, it was quite a few comments ago.
Right.
Interesting.
It's not quite as well directed as the last series, but I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. The reviews generally are good, and the first episode isn't bad, although the direction, it's quite chopped up. So there are a lot of flashbacks, and it rolls forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards, and you get slightly lost. And he changes his hair and his beard, and you're going, how far have we gone back? How far are we going forward? And that, frankly, is distracting. I found it distracting. It's not helpful in telling the narrative, but I'm going to persevere. BBC have put lots of money behind it. Fiona Shaw is a terrific actress, so her performance particularly is wonderful. So try and stick with it. I think it's going to be good.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
And Veronica Curran's saying, was Baptiste not killing Eve? And I think you're saying yes.
So Fiona Shaw was the British senior agent in Killing Eve. Tall Scottish actress who everybody will recognise. And she was Eve's boss. Not Eve's boss. She was the boss of the British agent. The senior civil servant.
We have clarification. Claridge has clarified. Russ and Phil and Chantal. Still Game is about a group of pensioners living in Glasgow and dealing with life's little problems in their own brilliant ways. Okay. Now.
Okay, I don't know it, but Paul, I will look it up, because if you're doing all 9 series again, then it must be worth watching. So I will definitely have a look.
And Ramsey is agreeing with you. Yes, the flashbacks are a bit head-scratching.
They are. It's a little. Anyway, I think it's going to be worth watching. Everybody's got baggage. You know, there's more baggage than Samsonite in this particular episode 1. And it sort of becomes so obvious that everybody's either a dead child or a disabled child or a dead wife or a disabled wife or a something. And this programme's got the lot.
So it's not a musical then?
It's not a musical.
Just checking. Hilary O'Neill's not going to pop up going.
Sounds like you come away from it feeling fantastic.
God.
What perchance else have you stumbled across?
Well, I'm going to just briefly mention, I often mention things that are on the BBC iPlayer in terms of classic films. And there is none more classic than A Farewell to Arms, which dates to 1932. A very, very, very old film with Gary Cooper. It won 2 Academy Awards. I think it was nominated for another 3, including Best Picture, and was based on what became probably the most famous book of the the most famous book of the 20th century, which was A Farewell to Arms by Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway. So the reason for mentioning that is not only is that film an absolute classic and deserves to be seen again, it's the story of an American who is brought into the Italian army. He falls in love with an English nurse. It's a tragic love story, but the story itself is brilliant. But Hemingway, there is a documentary series on BBC 4, which is really worth watching. It's had marvellous reviews. It's a 6-part series about Hemingway himself. And all is not quite what it seems. We all have this idea that we think we know about his background, and actually it's nothing like that. His childhood was actually incredibly troubled. His upbringing was a mess. His relationships with his parents were odd. And it's really worth persevering with. It's dense. It's full of information, but it's mind-stretching. It's just a piece of sort of education. If you're into authors, if you're into books, if you're into literature, then you should definitely watch Hemingway, which is a 6-parter on BBC 4 or the iPlayer at the moment.
Okay, Chantal, you know everything in the world. Pop quiz. What is odd about the cats in Ernest Hemingway's home to this day?
God, I have no.
We'll start for 10, no conferring.
Hang on, what is odd about the cats?
The cats that live in Ernest Hemingway's home and grounds in America to this day.
Are they Manx cats? Do they not have tails?
No,
I was going to say, are them all Manx cats? No?
No. I'll have to move on. I'm sorry, Chantal, you've missed the holiday to Barbados, but you're still in with the fondue set.
Oh, they're not those ghastly ones that have got no fur, are they?
No, they're not.
Oh.
Nice try.
No, they freak me out.
I had to take your first answer, so sorry. They have 6 toes.
What? That's
Fact.
bizarre.
I've been there. I know. I've been there. I've seen it. And it's a weird thing that all the cats that could have run all over the place And you know what? One of my biggest thrills about Hemingway is when I went to his house. I bought all the stories in paperback, and I put a leaf, literally a leaf from one of the trees in the book. And then when our son, twin number 2, he said, "Oh, I'm going to start reading Hemingway." I said, "Go all the stories," and he demolished it.
Right.
He just absolutely loved it. So it's really interesting you talking about Ernest Hemingway.
Well,
I found something yesterday, Chantal, that is old, and I started to watch it, and I got so glued. It was 3:30 in the morning, and I thought I could get some sleep. And I found it on YouTube. So I watch a lot of YouTube on my TV, and it was called The Men Who Assassinated Kennedy. Now, I thought it's 7 hours.
Wow.
It's all the shows banged together, so it's like one thing on you. And I'll be honest with you, I thought because I'm a bit of a nut about this, I thought I knew everything about the Kennedy assassination. Now, this was made, I think, 1985.
Yikes.
I was sitting there going, you have got to be kidding. It was extraordinary. So it's an old documentary series. I think it was British, certainly got a British voiceover. It's called The Men Who Killed, or The Men Who Assassinated Kennedy. Find it on YouTube. Absolutely incredible.
So is the suggestion that there was more than one?
Oh, they name the assassins. They name them.
Oh, okay. Well, you've lost me.
I was going to say,
this is it.
Assassins in the plural.
In the plural, there were 3 shooters.
Really?
3 shooters.
Okay.
And what they've done, and it's not Oliver Stone going raving nuts, screaming and shouting. It's all done with interviews of people who were there. And when you see these people being interviewed, Chantal, it's like they have no reason to lie. They're not seeking fame. They're just ordinary folk who happen to be along, that road near the Dealey Plaza in Dallas on that day in November 22, 1963. And you think, this is just extraordinary, and it opens up so many interesting avenues.
Wait, so, all right, so without wanting you to give it away, where does Harvey Oswald fit into all of this then?
They don't even think he shot them. Don't even think he fired the gun.
Really?
They don't even think he fired the gun. They only find one set of smudged fingerprints on the gun. And the gun, I'm not going to get into it now, we could talk about it for 3 hours, but the actual rifle was a World War II Italian rifle. It was rusty, the sights didn't work properly, and it was a piece of trash. I'll be honest with you, it was just a piece. And and the other fascinating thing, I'm sorry about this, but this will freak you out, right? As you know, Jack Ruby shot Oswald. We're not giving the game away. It's not fiction. Everyone knows this.
Yep.
Shot him the day after he was being arrested. He was being moved, right? And they always said, well, there's no connection. 2 of the women who worked in Ruby's nightclub in Dallas had dinner with Jack Ruby and Lee Harvey Oswald together.
Okay.
They'd had dinner with them at the same table. 2 separate women. He said, this is my friend Lee. I'm sitting there going, what? It's absolutely riveting. I've got the rest of the series to watch.
Okay.
It's extraordinary.
All right. Well, great
But
recommendation.
it's a very old documentary. It's 1985. It's not, it looks a bit hokey, and it's in the wrong, what do you call it, that ratio? It's the wrong ratio.
Oh, it's 4-3. 4-3.
It's 4-3. So,
Okay.
But
So
honestly, it was fantastic.
On to something that hopefully sounds a little more light-hearted and possibly more up my street as well. Veronica Curran says, Lost Tapes with Les Dawson was lovely.
Oh, I'm very
Gotta love
pleased.
Les Dawson.
Yeah, I did see that in the listings. I haven't actually watched it, but I think if you're a Les Dawson fan, it's just like watching the best bits of Morecambe and Wise, which I always do. Once a year, I always go back and watch the best bits of Morecambe and Wise.
Does it still make you laugh
Reason.
as much as ever? Makes
Morecambe
me
and Wise,
crack
absolutely.
up. Cracks me up.
Yeah. The Andre
absolutely
Previn sketch.
loved.
Oh,
My God, fantastic.
Yeah, it's the physical
I am
comedy
playing
in that is
the right notes,
absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
not necessarily in the right order.
And also our previous lovely guest, Sophie Corbett, the daughter of the wonderful Ronnie Corbett,
Yeah.
who was a legend. That show was terrific as well. People loved that.
Yeah.
The Ronnie Corbett, looking behind the scenes and family. That was absolutely lovely.
What I love
Absolutely
about with
love it.
Les Dawson is that I didn't realise for a long time. I knew I always liked him, but I think I only realistically discovered maybe how many years ago the reason why he could gurn the way he did.
Why?
Boxing accident. He used to love boxing, and his jaw was broken. He could gurn because of his boxing accident.
No. Well, that's
How
a
amazing
great
is
piece
that?
of trivia.
I know. How amazing is that? So that one accident practically helped set him up. Helped set him up for life. How amazing!
I'd like to ask Chantal this, because you've been in the game, at a very senior level. No. It's a serious question. When we talk about Ronnie Corbett, or with reverence, Morecambe and Wise, Les Dawson, these are naturally, as soon as you see them, you're Tommy Cooper, you're in a better mood. Do you think that era's gone?
Yes, because actually I think that comedy and what we now think of as more sophisticated actually doesn't hit the funny bone in the same way or the same place. I think that type of humor resonates differently. It's still funny, but in a different way. If the wonderful thing is, if you go back to the comics from the 60s and the 70s, the humor was much more pure humor. It wasn't reliant on other stuff. So the Andre Pippin stuff was just a perfect gag, perfectly written and perfectly executed.
Beautiful.
Just
it was just every part of it was just. And what was so wonderful, it was the way that Ernie Wise thought he was. It was the double gag, because you knew he was rubbish, but he thought he was great, and he was so full of it. It was just wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
There aren't many. Yeah, there aren't many comics like that I find massively funny at the moment. I think Michael McIntyre is a very good comic. I think his timing is
I do,
excellent.
and people hate him because he's successful, not because he's not funny. They hate him because he sells out arenas, because we all think he's funny. So the other comics are just jealous.
I genuinely don't dislike Michael McIntyre. The only thing is I can't watch him without feeling so dizzy, is because he just doesn't keep still. Literally. So I don't even know how the cameramen deal with, or camera persons deal with it. Seriously, when he goes back, forth. You just please stand still just for a second, because I really enjoy his humour, but I get a headache.
Yeah.
Lee Mack's very
perpetual
funny.
Motion.
As Kimmy Lashmore says, Lee Mack is naturally. We could get into the whole.
Lee Mack. Actually, Lee Mack is a very
funny guy. Yeah. And the last of those is I honestly think is Tim Vine.
Oh, okay.
I think clearly not your cup of tea, but I find him very funny.
So, fun enough, Tom O'Connor died this week, and
yes, he did.
Tom worked for me on Countdown a few times, and actually he was wonderful company. Whenever we had sort of either lunch before the show or supper after the show, I always wanted to sit next to him because he was such brilliant company. He really was.
Wasn't he a lovely man, though? I met him a few times through Variety, and I think I went to his house once for supper, and he was a genuinely very, very nice man.
Yeah.
Very down to earth, etc. Peter Kay, we've got to throw Peter Kay into the mix.
Okay. All right, yeah, I'll give you that one. I like Peter Kay.
Well, that's not me, that's Paul Andrews, actually.
Oh, okay.
Could be seen in the same vein, but less sketchy. Yeah, Peter Kay's...
But I've got to be honest, every single one you've mentioned so far from this era of comedy, make no mistake, yes, they're funny, but they're just not as good. It's as simple as...
It's different. It's just different. It's just different. Right, quick roundup. We got
roundup. So for those that have might remember the film called Fargo, which actually came out a long time ago, the Coen brothers.
Yeah.
And
the wood chipper.
The wood chipper, exactly. We all remember the wood chipper. And there is a spin-off TV series that actually came out in 2014. It's on Netflix. It's really worth watching. It has different characters in each of the series, so different set of stories in Series 1, Series 2, and Series 3. Series 1 features Billy Bob Thornton, who I completely love. I think he's a wonderful actor. But also Martin Freeman as a wife murderer. And we don't normally see Martin Freeman as anything other than sweet, gentle, and benign. It's a very different part for Martin Freeman. It's extremely well written. Why it's called black comedy, I don't know, because it's just black. It's dark. It's very, very dark stuff. And I think, if you like your darkness with a comic edge, then terrific, this is it. But it's definitely worth watching. I think season 2 They had who was in season 2? Let me think. They had Kirsten Dunst, Ted Danson, Jesse Plemons was in
Blimey.
season 2. Season 3, they had Ewan McGregor. So they've got very, very good actors, really worth watching. And it's on Netflix. There are 3 series there, and they may, in fact, do another series. Don't know yet, but they may.
Chantel, thank you so much. So sorry.
Thank you.
But as
Enjoy
ever, we're
Wales.
out of time. But thank you.
Enjoy the
Thank you.
weekend.
Enjoy the rest of your break.
Enjoy
Bye.
Wales.
There we go. Absolutely. Ooh, look at
That's
that.
marvellous. Even
Fantastic.
on her holiday, she joined. Wherever she
I
is,
know,
she joins us.
she's
It's
just
so nice
incredibly
of her.
dedicated. I don't know why,
So
because we've done
nice.
nothing to encourage this, I'm sure. But anyway, thank you very much to everyone who's appeared on the program today. Thank
Yep,
you very much
indeed.
to Dexter Moscow, if I could
He was
even say his
great.
name, Zinat Noorani.
She
Thank
was
you.
lovely.
And of course, Chantel Rickards. And not to mention,
Always
thank
great.
you all very much for your comments as well.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Oh, yes, Bradley Walsh. We nearly forgot him. He's terrific as well. Well done, Veronica. That's it. We will be
Good
back
job.
on a Monday, 12 o'clock. Enjoy your weekend, if that's your plan, or not if it's not. Until that time.
Well, don't think you can say much further than that, really, can you?
No, until that time, stay safe, stay well, be happy. That's all you got.
Absolutely. See you then. Bye.